indication that this is going to be a good
You have to put it out there. You have to. I am a firm believer in that kind of stuff.
Mine isn't today, though, Barbara. Mine's not.
Crunchy, not squeaky.
Yeah, it's not squeaky. I got this horrible break. I can't even move. I got this yesterday. It's awful, Barbara.
Well, the good thing is my lip is healing.
Yeah.
I can, if I press, I can still feel it. Hurts.
I saw the orthopedic yesterday, and it'll heal.
Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, December 5th. Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Board of Education meeting for December 5th here at 5 o'clock. We have an interpreter who will give us a little bit of instructions here.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I'm your interpreter for English and or Spanish. Please raise your hand if you need the headset. Buenas tardes. Soy su intérprete para inglés y español. Aquí tengo los audífonos. Por favor, levante la mano los que necesitan ayuda. Gracias. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We have the color guard presentation by the Tisco Heritage Academy High School Marine Corps JRTC and an instruction of Major Euclid and Gunnery Sergeant Sainer. And would you please stand, and they'll also lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Uro fidelidad de bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y República Española, una nación bajo dos, indivisible, con libertad y justicia por todos. Thank you. You may be seated. Could I have a roll call, please?
Peggy Mila Aragon.
Here.
Barbara Peterson.
Here.
Candelaria Patterson.
Here.
Elizabeth Armijo. Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Here.
Lorenzo Garcia.
Here.
Dr. David Piercy.
Here. Liz, are you on the phone? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Before we adopt the agenda, we have a couple things. One is we're going to remove item 3A2, education highlight of the Rio Grande High School's College Fair and School Assembly. It will be presented at a future board meeting. And also, we're going to move item 5, the superintendent's report, before item 4, the public forum. Superintendent has some updates on the CBL issue, and I think that'll be useful for the public to hear that prior to the public forum. And so we'll have that those two changes. So with those changes, do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And we'll move on to the recognition of students, staff, and community, and that will be Secretary Montoya Cordova.
All right, so welcome to tonight's board meeting, and thank you for coming. We would like to recognize the color guard tonight from Atrisco Heritage Academy High School Marine Corps JROTC under the instruction of Major, Ukaili, and Gunnery Sergeant Shanner. For the third year running, Atrisco Heritage Academy has earned the distinction of being a Naval Honors School from the Marine Corps. AHA's JROTC program was chosen for this honor from 50 other programs in the region for their excellence across all aspects of the program, including academics, participation in extracurricular sports and activities, college and university scholarships awarded, enlistments into the armed forces, public affairs efforts, and community outreach. Congratulations, this is a great honor. Would the instructors and the students please come to the podium and introduce themselves?
Good afternoon. My name is Cadet Sergeant Caitlin Knapp. I am a junior at Atrisco.
Good evening. My name is Cadet Corporal Ranavillo, and yeah. Junior 2.
Junior two. Okay.
Good morning, I'm Jessica Schoen. I am a corporal, and I'm from Atrisco Heritage.
Hi, I'm Samara Torres. I'm in 10th grade, and I'm from Atrisco.
And retired Marine Scott Ukaili. I served 20 years from 1992 to 2013, and I've spent the last 6 years teaching here, and I absolutely love it. So plan to do 20 years here. So thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Good job. Thank you.
I know. I'm dressed in my winter garb.
Yeah, it was young women. That was awesome. All right. So our next recognition will be introduced by Troy Hughes, Associate Superintendent of Zone 4, and Antonio Gonzalez, Associate Superintendent of Zone 2. So Mr. Hughes and Mr. Gonzalez.
Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, good evening. Tonight we have the honor of recognizing several extraordinary culinary arts programs. Culinary arts are an integral part of career and technical education. Culinary arts are part of several career pathways, including energy, environmental, engineering, construction, manufacturing, agriculture, health, biosciences, hospitality, and tourism, to name a few. The Board of Education would like to recognize several culinary teams for creating the delicious food that was served during the Legislative Education Study Committee recently here at Hawthorne Elementary a few months ago. So as we call your names, will the students we are wanting to recognize this evening please stand behind us against the wall for your recognition. From Atrisco Heritage Academy High School, we'd like to honor Eslinda Granados, Austin Ho, Adria Huggins, Frida Montero, Diego Ramirez, Jennifer Rodriguez, Adriana Romero, Trevor Young, and Ty Young.
Culinary arts is definitely dear to my heart, but closer to my waist of enjoyment. If you have ever had the opportunity to eat what these students produce, it's absolutely amazing. So we'll continue. I have El Dorado. So we have, El Dorado has 31 kids on this, so we might have a big line, or they not all be here. It's just
They've got lots of stuff going on.
they have lots of stuff going on and homework and getting ready for finals. So well, go ahead and introduce their names, but we'll kind of go from there. Christina Anaya Leach, Miranda Archuleta, Isaac Canales, Kimberly Candelaria, Kobe David, Hunter Davis, Samantha Devevic, Avery Eberhart, Rose Kelly, Miaya Kno, Joseph Cotman, Austin Kohler, Justus Lefevre, Callie Landman, Ronnie Lehman, Andrew Magnina, Michael Odia, Delaney Pendleton, Maya Peterson, Amy Prispova, Rachel Rains, Daniel Roman, Nathaniel Rowe, Gabriel Smith, Daniel Sullivan, Preston Sutton, Ethan Townsend, Ramessa Troy, Andrew Vega, David Womack, and Megan Zuniga. These three can really cook because it just took 31 people. These are the go-to crew, I guess, right here. So they're here representing El Dorado. Now, so I don't get in trouble, we will represent Sandia as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? Principal's happy that I represent every school equally in the zone. So from Sandia High School, we have Haley Alicio, Zandria Figueroa, Echo Halbert, Caitlin Hoffens, Christina Martinez, and Charlene Satanik. So that's it. You want to stand up too? You got a cool jacket. We're good. So, but honestly, thank you very much for these students and staff as they have worked tirelessly to help present and provide and perform for our legislators and also for us at different times and different things. So thank you for the talent that you share with us and others. Let's all show appreciation for these amazing cooks. Thank you.
Why don't the parents here for these students, if you're here, why don't you stand too?
Parents or friends or administration that any connection to this. Go ahead and stand. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Schools that we have. All right. Our next recognition will be introduced by John DeFay, Executive Director of Maintenance and Operations. Mr. DeFay.
Good evening. Tonight, we are honored of recognizing a wonderful, outstanding staff member at M&O. Teresa Baca is a Secretary at Maintenance and Operations in the Grounds Department. And of course, maintenance operations, we know, is probably one of the best departments at Albuquerque Public Schools. Troy. She's taken responsibility on her own to help M&O and the district save resources, money, and by looking outside the box and taking responsibility on herself to do these things. And she knows how to help herself. She's self-motivated and a self-starter. She looked at the waste, refuse, and recycling schedules and pickups at every school and every site, as well as administration sites. The scheduling is a very complicated process, so she needed to study it and discover some sites that were not processing as much refuse as others. And scheduling this is hard because of the times they have to do it, this very small window where we're not disrupting classes and neighbors and stuff. She also recognized during the summer that we reduce our waste at many sites and could benefit from creating new schedules at each site during the summertime only and during certain days of the week. It was also a complicated process and well beyond her responsibilities, but she took it on as a challenge and was extremely successful. Because of her hard work and determination, the district reduced actual waste costs in the first 2 months by over $100,000 in operational costs. So, Ms. Baca, would you please come forward? Would the family and friends of her stand up so we can greet you also? I want to thank you for all the ways you're taking care of APS as well as M&O. She's the one that also, when people complain, she's answering the phone at grounds and all the other places, and she does it wonderful. She does it with a very friendly voice and very positive always. And so I'd like to say thank you and everything you do for APS, and let's show our appreciation for Ms. Baca.
Thank you, John. It's an honor to receive this recognition, and we appreciate you. Most of all, there at M&O, we look up to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Our last recognition this evening will be introduced by Dr. Chris Muir, Executive Director of Student, Family, and Community Supports.
Thank you. President Piercy, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy. Tonight I have the honor of recognizing several exceptional community partners. A while back, the Student, Family, Community Supports Division, which, by the way, is, when we talk about the best departments, we're just above M&O, so just you know that. Just have to kind of get it in perspective there. We were approached by Feed New Mexico and America Prays regarding distributing turkey dinners to families for Thanksgiving holiday. So when I got contacted, what did I do? I turned it over to Elizabeth Calhoun, who is the manager of our special projects and volunteer programs, but she couldn't be here tonight, but I told her I would embarrass her even if she wasn't here. So she did the layman's work of trying to help coordinate this effort. The groups that I mentioned work directly with Sandy Kemp, our Executive Director of APS Food and Nutrition, to purchase, prepare, and package and deliver turkey dinners. And it sounds, you know, okay, so it's food and nutrition, they do that all the time. This was 2,000 turkey dinners, and each of those turkey dinners feeds a family of 4. So it wasn't just something that we just did on top of, oh yeah, we can deliver a few turkey dinners. No, this was a lot of coordination work, and I think at some point we probably need to recognize Sandy's department for all the work that they did in this. But tonight we're recognizing our community partners for their work. So these pre-cooked, so this is an interesting concept, because when you think of giving turkeys out, you think of giving out those frozen turkeys. No, these are pre-cooked turkey meals, and it's a full meal that's designed specifically for families who are homeless or living in a facility that does not have a kitchen or microwave. And so they can actually be prepared without having a microwave or having a kitchen. And so, again, 2,000 meals serving a family of 4 each of those meals. So the meals included everything that you would think of in your turkey dinner. So everything from the potatoes to the turkey, and I can't even tell you, even though I was part of the assembly line that got to put like about 5 of them together. So the group worked directly with the staff at Title I Homeless Project to select the schools that would then identify the students that would need the meals. So on November 16th and 20th, 2,000 packaged meals were delivered to 57 pre-selected elementary, middle, and high school and charter schools across the district. So as I call your name, with the following people, please join me at the podium. Brian Alared and Denise Rakovich from America Praise, Holly Slade and Daniel Aragon from Feed New Mexico Kids, and Matt Perolo and Nathan Heisigs from Calvary Chapel. These are the people that went out and collected all of the money. And it wasn't just that, something that was sort of left out. Not only did they collect all the money, but they organized, and I don't even know the number of volunteers that went to all of those schools on those days to help distribute those meals to the kids. So we had volunteers, we had the money, and they told me when we first met, oh, this is Brian telling me this, we're going to try to do 2,000, but we're not sure we're going to hit it. And he came in and he said, we did it. We have enough. We can do 2,000 meals, and we are just thrilled with this partnership, not as much as APS is thrilled with this partnership. So help me in recognizing these wonderful individuals. For the family and friends of these great people, please stand so we can recognize you. So again, thank you for all that you do, and please go through the line.
That's amazing. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
2,000 meals, 8,000 people. Yes. Thank you so much for being part of this. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you for serving Albuquerque. Thank you for serving. Amazing. Amazing.
Bunch in. All right, so we're at 27. That concludes our recognition. Congratulations again to everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to be moving into the superintendent's report. I don't know if we had some people that needed to transition out. If you want, this is a good time. Thank you again, everyone that was recognized tonight. It was great.
Oh, amazing people.
Mm-hmm.
Really amazing.
Okay. Right, let's get some people in.
We need to let the other people come in.
Yeah.
Search the camera.
There's Janet. Looks like we have some seats up in the front. Should we direct them? There are some seats up here in the front too, on this side.
No, right here. This is
No,
fine.
these
Right
are
here.
fine, yes, up here.
Yeah, these are the best seats in the house.
Thank you.
Hi.
Yes.
Does it say it says Leslie? Got it? Okay. So good evening, everybody. First off, I'd like to thank the Board of Education for allowing me to speak early in the regular agenda. And I also asked the board, since they seem to be in a very good mood, I asked them if they would allow me to sit with them on the dais so that I would be able to see the expression from the speakers. And that was very important to me, and there I am. I wanted to sit over here, actually over by the stairs, but they put me in the middle. I don't know why, with a reason. I want to thank everyone who has reached out in recent weeks to engage in the critical discussion about cultural sensitivity. It was very important, and I thank you for that. The fact that you have taken the time to be here tonight, to write, to call, to be heard, it speaks volumes. It speaks volumes of your commitment to our students, and that heartens all of us. I really, truly appreciate that. We have heard your concerns, your suggestions, and are taking steps to ensure that cultural sensitivity in our classrooms, on our campuses, within our departments, and throughout the school community takes place. Albuquerque Public Schools values diversity and honors our rich history of inclusion. Quite frankly, our diversity makes us strong. It makes us unique. And it's something that we celebrate and embrace and cherish each day in thousands of classrooms across the district. Frankly, the success of our children depends in great part on our ability to honor them as individuals and to meet their unique needs. I want to offer a heartfelt apology on behalf of APS and on my behalf for any pain caused by the events that transpired at Cibola High School last month. I have personally reached out to the students and families directly affected by this situation. As you've probably heard, the Cibola teacher no longer works for APS. However, that's not the end of it. in light of this event, it is clear that we need to revisit strategies to help create a more nurturing and accepting environment for all. It breaks my heart. It truly saddens me so much to think that these students, that any of our students may feel disrespected or unappreciated or unaccepted. As a child who grew up many, many years ago, I know that feeling. And there's no worse feeling than to feel that you're not part of the group, you're different, you're less than, whatever it is. So that should never, ever happen. And that is not who we in APS are. Our job is to create a learning space where all students feel free to explore and to express who they are, not who someone else wants them to be. APS wants to do right by our students. We live and die by that every single night, every day when we're writing lesson plans, when we're doing, talking to communities. That is the key component of our life's work. And I will be the first to say that we're not perfect. So when things go wrong, hearing from you, the stakeholders, is exactly what we need. It's not easy. It wasn't easy to hear your concerns and what you felt, but that's exactly what we needed to hear. And that's exactly what you needed to tell us. And we have heard, and we want to do better. We need your wisdom. We need your advice. We need your guidance. We don't have all the answers. When we designed the APS Academic Master Plan at the start of my journey as your superintendent, one of our initial commitments was to educate the whole child in a way that removes barriers to learning, embraces individuality, and connects to the student's community. In that realm, we have implemented such initiatives as Native American Studies and Leadership, the Bilingual SEAL Program, the Native American Government and Economics classes offered to high school students, Native language programs, and the Summer Cultural Enrichment Program. Those are just a drop in the bucket of the kinds of things that we know we need to be able to move forward with. But I'm telling you this because we have been trying, we've been working, but obviously we have so much more to do. And again, we need to do it together. Still, there is clearly more work to do, and we are up to the task. We're ready. And especially if you're willing to back us and support us and help us. In an effort to learn and grow as an organization, we're seeking the assistance of local, state, national experts in the areas of cultural competency training. We also are seeking public input to make sure that training it's relevant and appropriate. Two very difficult things to do. It's an easy thing to have a video up there and everybody watches it and then we can just say, okay, done. But that's not the way we work. We want to do it right, and with your help we can. Let us see this as an opportunity to join together, to strengthen our resolve and commitment to creating, imagine this, creating a public school district where all students feel welcome, accepted, and above all, safe. This effort is just starting, and I look forward to working with those in our community who have come forward, offering help, including many of you who are here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Reedy. We'll now go on to the public forum with Board Member Yolanda Cordova.
We're up to 30.
Yeah. Okay. Nice job.
So whether you are here with a request for the Board of Education to consider, provide information, or just see how the Board of Education operates, we want you to know that you are welcome. The Board of Education has established rules for expected civil behavior during the meeting and public forum. Upon signing in to speak tonight, you received a signature form and a copy of the procedural directive which outline those rules for expected behavior. The presiding officer will enforce these rules as appropriate throughout the meeting. Public forum is an opportunity for the Board of Education to hear your comments. It is not a dialogue with the board members. Tonight there are 30 speakers. To accommodate the greatest number of speakers, each speaker has 1 minute for comments within the 45-minute public forum. The time remaining to speak will appear on the screen in front of you. And at the end of the given time, please complete your sentence quickly so that other speakers will have a chance to speak. You may not yield your unused time to another speaker. You are always welcome to submit additional comments to the board in writing if you are unable to convey your message or you're not able to speak within the 45-minute public forum. The Board of Education encourages you to stay for the entirety of the meeting so you may listen to board member comments before we adjourn. Only at this time may your concerns be addressed at the discretion of each board member. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up the first 4 speakers, and if you could just line up, that way we can make sure that we have enough time in the forum. So the first 4 speakers are Robin Minthorn, Leola, I don't know how to say your last name, I'm sorry, Leola Sinja, okay. Marion Goodluck, and Carly Lehman? Okay, thank you. And the first speaker may go ahead.
Hato, Robin Minthorn Imka. I would like to acknowledge the indigenous peoples of this land, the Sindio Pueblo, other Pueblos, and Navajo communities who have community and relationships on this land before I begin my talk. Dear Superintendent Reedy and Board of Education President David Piercy, as faculty from the Department of Native American Studies at the University of New Mexico, we are writing to ensure you remain committed to take action on an incident that occurred at Cibola High School on October 31st, 2018, involving Ms. Easton and 2 Native American students in her class. While we appreciate Ms. Easton will no longer teach at the school, we want to state our utmost support for the Johnson family, the Native American families who have been directly impacted by the deplorable acts of this teacher, and all students who attend APS. Furthermore, we demand APS take every action possible to restore the wrong committed to the young women to protect their right to learn in a safe environment and to prevent further occurrences from happening across the school district. Furthermore, we stand in complete solidarity with the letter issued to APS by the ACLU of New Mexico, and all communities call for your attention to hear the voice of Native American families. Thank you.
Native American Studies classes would greatly enhance APS's ability to successfully serve the Native student population, benefit non-Native students by giving them the opportunity to learn about their peers, about Native American social, cultural, and political history, and about current policies impacting Native American students in the district. Develop all students' critical thinking and consciousness in regards to issues of race and discrimination, and allow APS the ability to genuinely demonstrate the value of diversity in the district. Moreover, we support the implementation and growth of all anti-oppressive curriculum. We thank you for your attention to this letter, and we appreciate the action you have taken thus far. However, we continue to be appalled by the harm caused by not only the teacher, but APS's failure to adequately ensure the safety and care for the young women involved immediately. This was not an isolated incident of racism. You were recently educated by the Native American community through letters and public demonstrations of support for the young, resilient Native American women who faced what no student should ever face. We too advocate that our hair, bodies, language, and land are sacred. Under no circumstances are Native children to be harmed, as we have been throughout colonial and U.S. history. We will be sharing this letter publicly. Thank you for your time. Native Studies.
Good evening. I'm Marion Goodluck. I'm 64 years old, and I am of Navajo, Zuni, and Jemez descent. Nanastajin Schleto Twahiglini Pashishin, Shinala A. Ashin Eroda that's a Nakaidane, Shiche A. Trapahe. This is a traditional way of introducing myself in order to create relations of me being an aunt, a grandmother, a sister, a daughter to people. I'm come here before you to explain that my attire is a reflection of what my mother taught me. We wear coral and turquoise so that the holy people will recognize us. As a Navajo tribal member, a Navajo medicine man told me that our real name is not just Dene. It is certainly not Navajo. Navajo, I was taught in childhood, meant thieves. Dene Diyan Dene means holy people who walk the earth. That is our real name, not just human. Thank you, and I have given you a document you can follow. You'll get sued if this continues. Thank you.
Yad she Carly Lehman Unisha, but on Inishle, Kachini Bashchin, Kintachin Dashache, Kian Dashnale. I am a survivor of APS. I graduated from Sandia High School in 2007. I can see that nothing has changed. My sister currently attends Cibola High School and has filed a complaint against her AP English teacher. She is discriminated against and is constantly undermined. She recently told me one of her teachers said Miss Myers, the principal, told other staff members that one person's actions should not punish all of them, and she does not want to do cultural sensitivity training. How can we trust a principal who has no values, who tells us things but says another? People like her are the problem. People like her is what causes the systemic problems in APS. What needs to happen now is cultural sensitivity training for all APS employees. Native American history curriculum and literature. Native American Heritage Month also needs to be recognized, as well as Pueblo feast days. Ahiahet to the Native community who has come out and supported all of us.
The next four speakers, Franklin Ghana, Danielle Baker, Emma Jones, and Sitlali Tierney. Did I say that correct? More or less, I'm sorry.
President Piercy, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, before you say that you had an anti-racism training on August 30th, I believe, 2016, in response to the Volcano Vista situation with math class students in the classrooms where President Piercy ignored Channel 13 when he said no comment, I'd have to say, sorry. Superintendent Reedy, you got to do a better job. And board members, you have to do a better job in training teachers. 11 years and no change with teachers being trained. Superintendent was trained, board members were trained, but teachers are not. And you are disrespecting students like we saw during when it all exploded and President Piercy said no more comments from students.
I didn't say that.
You had an agenda, and I understand, okay? I understand that. But your main focus is students in this district, and you are not training teachers when it comes to systematic racism in your district.
Thank you, Franklin.
Unacceptable.
I would like to go on the record as someone that is a supporter of Miss Easton. My daughter Mackenzie suffered a traumatic brain injury in October 2016 and has since required a 504 plan. Miss Easton was instrumental in helping her to acclimate back into school and also in offering help to her to enable her to succeed. It saddens me that my child supported her teacher, exercising her rights as others have done on the other side, and has received threats in and out of school as a result.
Please.
Excuse me. This is not for any public. She has her time. Everybody else has their time, okay? You cannot make comments from the audience here. We will ask you to be removed if you do that. That is not fair. Do you understand? Not fair. Not fair. I'm telling you.
You can't really talk to neighbors about what is fair.
Let her have her minute. Let her have her minute, please. Thank you.
Take your minute, girl. Oh, you already took most of it. These children speaking their mind should feel safe on both sides. We shouldn't have to have a 17-year-old be scared to go to school because she supported her teacher instead of the other girl. And she does know the other girl, and I've purposely not said anything negative about her because she's a child. But I could think of negative things to say about the other side. I'm not going to. I'm just here to support Miss Easton. How do you know my husband's not Native American? Do you know that? No, you don't. I'm from Oklahoma. The majority of my friends are Native American. It has nothing to do with that. What's sad is how many people are going to miss out on her education. I'm not saying she didn't make a mistake. I'm saying she was the best teacher at Cibola. And if you were to look at the scores of the ACT students that had her versus the kids that don't, hers are much better.
What if she cut off your daughter's hair?
Well, if she said, okay, do it, then I'd be fine. Because that's what she said. Yes, she did.
Okay,
You guys are ridiculous. You can't even let other people speak. You just have to speak on top of them. All I came to do was say my opinion. You say yours, I say mine. That's how it works. You don't get to talk during mine. I didn't talk during all the other people's, did I?
Bye, Felicia.
Been like that since 1492. Well, I wasn't here in 1492, so I got no problem with that.
Typical
Okay.
white lady bullshit.
You don't even know. You have no idea.
Okay, white privilege.
Go ahead.
Okay, okay, let's go to the next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Emma Jones. I am the lead organizer with Learning Alliance of New Mexico. I'm also a member of Families United for Education. I'm a parent as well, and also a former student of APS. In my own experience as a student and as a parent, we both experienced racism in our schools. This is not an unknown thing. This happened recently at Volcano Vista as well, where there was an instance of racism. Families United for Education came forward and personally hand-delivered to the board a rapid response protocol to racism. Since then, not much has been said about that. It's been completely ignored. That kind of silence is deafening, and it also shows that the board and the APS is complacent with racism. I do not heartfeltly believe that that's not always the case. We've been able to also train some of the board members and the superintendent on anti-racism. We offered those services for the most part free of charge, even though we should have been compensated for those kind of things. The board should make that investment to ensure that all people inside APS are trained on anti-racism and that we are not complacent at all with racism. Thank you.
My name is Itlali Alejandra Tierney, and I'm a 17-year-old senior at La Cueva High School, but you might remember me as one of the leaders of March for Our Lives when I trespassed on your property as a sit-in because you were taking NRA money. I'm here today because as a student, I am outraged that 2 of my indigenous peers were assaulted by an individual in this school district that the board entrusted to provide an equitable education. I am outraged not only because it took over 30 days for the teacher to resign, and you didn't fire her. I'm outraged because the board members in this room chose to remain silent rather than punish the teacher whose racially charged assault were in question. I'm outraged because while the families and friends of those impacted stood at this very podium and poured their emotions out, this board remained mostly silent and were almost dismissive in the ways that they offered no support to those who have been affected. Putting in cultural classes like Latin American studies and the bilingual seal aren't huge steps. They're the bare minimum. What are the steps towards cultural sensitivity and, most importantly, anti-racism that Superintendent mentioned before? Thank you.
Our next four speakers, Justine Tiba, Julie Hinsman, Demetrius Johnson, and Nicole Martin.
First of all, I think you guys are being insincere as fuck about this whole thing. You guys are coming up here with your fake ass apologies saying that you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that.
Vulgar language
You got
is not
her.
allowed
Excuse
in
me,
here.
I'm talking.
Vulgar language is not allowed.
You're taking part of my time, lady. Anyway, your guys' apology was so insincere. You guys are talking about you guys don't forget that it took over a month to get this lady to be fired. And don't forget that the only reason that you guys fired her was because of the media crap story that you guys had to put up with. This was only for the comfort of you guys. It wasn't about the student. It was never about the students. It was never about being inclusive or handling anti-racism. It was only because of the media crap, national crap story that you guys got. Don't forget that. What's today? It's December 5th. And we're barely hearing an apology from the superintendent right now today in December. This happened in October.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a member of OPEN, and I'm here to speak to you about inclusion for children with disabilities. I am also asking for more mandatory training for cultural sensitivity as well as special education, specifically to the principals and new principals, so they can better support and understand their teachers. I was going to read an email that I received for my son, but I do not have enough time. But this email was a call from a teacher because she had reached out to her principal as well as to her head special ed teacher trying to get more support for the classroom. The principal was a new principal. He did not understand. They need more training, obviously not just in special education. They need mandatory training also for cultural sensitivities. Thank you.
Ja, Desh Demetrius Johnson Dashijine. Turachini initially, I don't sit on Jini Bashishin, Sanjikan Edishite, Turachini Edishinella. Hello, I'm Demetrius Johnson, and I'm the older brother of Mackenzie Johnson, who was called the Bloody Indian at Cibola High School. I'm really upset. I'm really done with this. Last meeting, I could not believe the disrespect I was shown to my sister, her peers, and all of us in the room for limiting our time to 1 minute. I commented last meeting about the 1 minute. I think it's bullshit that we keep having to adhere to these time limits, these structures that were not made for us. We have to acknowledge that we are on indigenous land, we are on Tiwa land, we're on Sandia Pueblo land. This apology that was given to us, it happened more than a whole month it took for this apology to happen. And even you say, Superintendent Reedy, that you want APS to be a place that makes one of the first districts in the nation to make students feel safe. Well, why stop there? You could be the first district. You could be the first district in America, in the United States, to have a curriculum set around indigenous peoples, to show our history, to respect this language. We can make that happen. I'm really upset.
Ja, Taesha Nicole Martin Yanisha Tachi Ninish like Kiasani Bushichin Tija Dusha Kiasani Dushanella Guati Seopa. My name is Nicole Martin. I'm from the Navajo Reservation and Laguna Pueblo as well. I was born and raised here in Albuquerque. I've attended APS schools since the get-go. I've been in these white institutions since I was born. seeing how Indigenous bodies and people are treated amongst our white peers is disgusting. Seeing it not only at a free education level, but also when we have to go through these white institutions of college just to get a freaking piece of paper to say we know what we're talking about, and then we have to go and create grassroots organizations to teach these kids what should already be taught in these schools is beyond disrespectful, it's disgusting, and we're ready for a change, and we're gonna bring it to you.
The next four speakers, Edward Johnson, Shannon Johnson, Philip Daw, and Benjamin Abbott.
Yeah, I think I've introduced myself before, but I'll do it for my native people. Yeah, Edward Johnson, Yinchia. Tsina Jenny and Shlo, Twitch in a bushes chin. Hana ne dash a che, Twitcho ne dash another. Look on Kelea using Asha. Hello, people. I'm glad everybody's getting a history lesson all the way back to 1492, and we've been here longer before that. It doesn't give anybody an excuse to know that you have Native friends, because we also have white friends. Really, first of all, I like the moves that they made thus far. I can't say more than that. That's what I've asked for since day one. And for the record, I did speak to the principal day one to contain this. She looked at me right in the eye, blank staringly, and had no answers. I told her, if you don't have answers, I'll help you get there. This is where we're at. So everybody's got to take their medicine just like we have, over 5,400, 500, 1492, since 1492. What may you? We've done it. I'm sure you can too.
Yadzea. My name is Shannon Johnson, and I'm the mother of Mackenzie Johnson, who was called a bloody Indian. I am not here talking as a district employee of yours. I'm actually talking as a mother right now. I would like to make a note to all of you and hear me now. I am worried about my daughter's safety at school, because just as of yesterday, you know, she still has peers and teachers giving her snide remarks. So I need protection for my daughter. Now that her name and picture is out in the national level, I would like for her to have protection from your APS internal police department that did your own investigation as well. So if they can conduct that, I'm sure they can make protection for, or have protection for my daughter and Indigenous students at Cibola High School as well. Thank you for hearing me out.
Hello, my name is Benjamin Abbott. I'm a PhD candidate in American Studies at UNM. I've been teaching 200 and 300 level classes at UNM for over 5 years. So I'm here today because of my outrage at the racist incidents at Cibola. And as a historian, I want to highlight that racism and colonialism are foundational to the United States and to U.S. society. So these are not contradictions that can be papered over with appeals to diversity and inclusion. So I just asked the board to take all of these demands from community members very seriously. For addressing racism and colonialism, these are just the bare minimum, just the beginning. And overall, it's going to take a profound social transformation, both within APS and society at large, to really address incidents like these and prevent them from happening. Thank you.
Ja, this kid is Philip Danske. He honest Nishle. Kazayani Bashes Chin. Tina Chini Dashichi. Torachini Dashanala. I'm here just to say one thing, and that's empathy. And that's what this country has turned into. And I pray that we correct this. We Native American people have been for years, centuries. We accepted all you people from across the oceans with our open hearts and open minds and belief that we all can live in freedom, that we all can live equally, we all can believe in each other, and we all believe in one great creator. And to have this happen to our students is a travesty. It's not only Native American, Hispanics, Orientals, it's all across the spectrum. Even your own people are being discriminated against. I see homeless kids on the streets. Anglos, whites, blacks, it doesn't matter. But all I gotta say is we must get over this empathy. Society as itself we're gonna destroy each other.
Thanks.
And this is starting right here. We teach our kids these things. And I pray for each of us here in this room, everywhere, that we get ourselves together and overcome empathy, because that has gripped our nation, this world, our existence, our souls. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. The next four, Lonnie Tideman, Noel Begay, Lori Burrup, and Tina Fahrenkamp. I think I got that correct. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lonnie Tideman. As a future educator, this recent event, it really breaks my heart. I think all kids should feel safe going to school, and their teachers should make them feel welcomed and appreciated. And so this event has definitely shown me what kind of teacher I don't want to be. But thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would also like to ask the board what changes you plan on making to the school budget to address more special education training and cultural sensitivity training for the 2019-2020 school year.
Hello, Yate, Shay Noel Begay Nisha, the Bethlehem Inishla, Tachini, Bashashin, Ogi Dashache do Toba and Dashanala, Nan George and Nasha. I want to thank you for the minimal time you permitted us to voice ourselves, even though I disagree with that time. This is not a happy discussion, but it is a necessary discussion. First, I would like to say I'm sorry for what happened to those Native women in that school. I'm even more tired of saying I'm sorry for these occurrences happening in the first place. I'm a graduate from Cibola High School, and I can only imagine the repercussions the young ladies are currently facing. It's very disheartening, and I can say that I've been there. I've lost friends due to bursting bubbles about people's favorite teachers. It came down to my father, who worked for APD, to come in to speak with a principal because I was threatened with a gun and a teacher did nothing. This isn't the first time that this is ever going to happen. This won't be our last time fighting for injustice. And I just hope Miss Easton at least apologizes, because as long as she stays quiet, it doesn't help.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for your apology. It's very late. However, I feel like we need to hear both sides of the story. I'm open to it. But I just want those girls to know that I believe them in this happening.
Thank you.
I'm in the minority tonight in voicing my support for Mary Jane Easton. And I first want to say that I am sorry to the girls who were offended by Miss Easton. But in my heart, and everyone who really knows Miss Easton knows that she never meant that to be racist. She was acting out a historical character on Halloween. She made a mistake, but I know that her intentions were to be racist. And I know that if she had the opportunity that she would apologize to these girls for making her feel that way. Miss Easton isn't just the type of teacher that shows up to collect a paycheck. She cares deeply about her students, no matter their ethnicity, and she goes out of her way to help them however she can. She's the reason why CBLA's test scores have been so high. My son, who graduated last year, his only regret was never having her as a teacher, because she brought that level to a totally higher level. And at the honors banquet, she's consistently recognized as being a fabulous teacher who has meant so much to them. So I mourn for the kids that will never have the opportunity to be there.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tina Fahrenkopf. I'm a member of the Passamaquoddy tribe from the state of Maine. I'm also the executive director of the National Indian Youth Council here in Albuquerque. One of the things that we do is run a workforce development and training program. So the incidents here that we're discussing have been really dismaying for our organization as we train people and enter the workforce, and these youth are the future workforce. We urge them to stay in school, but if they're not feeling safe and protected in the schools, how can we stand behind those words? They're our future, and if they're not feeling safe at school, bad enough it's coming from their peers, but their teachers too is a bit much. And I would like to reiterate what others have said, that we train teachers annually. It cannot be a one-time deal on cultural sensitivity and competency. And we address the issues of racism, and we strengthen policies to ensure that occurs. Thank you.
The next four speakers, Verlin Coker, Janet Sayers, Ronald Solomon, and Barbara Burnside.
Hi, my name is Verlin Coker. I initially wanted to come up here to maybe teach you a lesson about what it is when we say we need you to do the right thing. Law and policy has always been about what is written and not what is right, and what you protect is what is written. The right thing to do is to give us more time, to give us a dialogue, but it is not what's written in the policy. But it is so obvious to me that right now what's more important is a quick lesson in what white privilege is. While I have no doubts that this teacher is a good teacher based off of these test scores that these parents are bringing in, what they need to understand is that while they get the good test scores, they get the higher grades, we have to deal with dropping out. Even beyond this, to insinuate the APS is succeeding in any way is a falsehood. Your graduation statistics are falsehoods and fraudulent. This 60-70% is nowhere near what it actually is. Even beyond that, my GED paper itself, the diploma I got, states that only 60% of graduating seniors can even pass the GED, meaning that almost half of your students are not leaving high schools with a high school education. This is a systemic problem. This isn't just Indigenous students that have to deal with this. It is every student that has to deal with your failings. And it's not until that we start recognizing Indigenous as intelligent, and start understanding that our systems have been about 21st century education, that everything that we've done entirely for 500 years has been what you guys are just now trying to understand where to move forward. What we need is not just the training, but the curriculum for the training needs to be posted online. Videos of the training need to be posted online. We need to have community input. Everything about APS is a failure for the students. No matter what these test scores say or whatever your fraudulent statistics have, it doesn't matter because there are so many countless students that are failing out when they don't need to.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Superintendent, members of the board. I actually came tonight to speak in support of the bond issue, and that I'm happy to increase my $1.30 a day that I'm spending on my property tax to whatever it's going to be, $1.50 a day. So I'll be supporting the February vote. Coming from a background in city government and seeing how city council meetings are run, where they've actually set aside some special meetings so that people could be able to speak longer than 1 minute on a topic. But I just want to say there's no excuse for people being rude and shouting and interrupting. And so perhaps some of the rules that the city council uses, where they actually stop meetings and vacate the room until people are in order. So I thank you for your service and your willingness to listen, and just thank you.
Okay, to approach.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Ron Solomon, and I'm from the pueblos of Laguna and Zuni here in New Mexico. And I wanted to at least come and represent the City of Albuquerque Commission on Indian Affairs and indicate to you as an appointed member of that commission that we're abhorred by the situation that occurred up at Cibola High School. We wanted to stand with our students, and I'm talking all students here, and just register our concern over this. As a former executive at the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center here in Albuquerque, one of the things that we engaged in, and ironically, one of the people that was engaged in it was one of the Cibola graduates, in developing a curriculum of, for teachers and for students on New Mexico and Native American history. I'd be glad to help pull that in and talk more about that at another time. Other organizations such as the Americans for Indian Opportunity do something like Indians 101, if that would be helpful. But I would just thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yatashe Barbara Burnside in share my excuse in Slant Tabahan Bushes Chin to the Genie that should to the Gonja that should Nella a good ego the Nance Donish Slant Twin Oglet that Nasha. Hi, my name is Barbara Burnside, and I'm from Indian Wells, Arizona, on the Diné Nation, and I come from a strong bloodline of genocide survivors. I come from a strong bloodline of warriors. My grandmother just turned 99 years old, and she is a survivor of the boarding school system. When her grandmother was in her mother's womb, our people were still in Fort Sumner. That's what I mean when I say I come from a strong bloodline of genocide survivors and warriors. When I heard about this last month, I was attending a training in San Diego, California for the White Bison Wild Variety Movement, where we study the effects of the different genocide tactics that have been used against our Native people. And when I heard about this, I was so shocked and speechless that shit like this is still happening today. That happened to my grandma 99 years ago. Why is it still happening today? And the only way we can make a change and we can go forward and really have some progress is if we start acknowledging the truth. The very first welfare system was when we natives housed, clothed, and fed disease-ridden, lost, illegal, the first original and only illegal immigrants.
The next four speakers, I can't read the writing on this one. I think the last name is Patel Sarada. I'm sorry, I can't read your writing. Virginia Koenig, Connie Chavez, and Melissa So.
My name is Shraddha Patel, and I'm a member of the South Asian community, and I work for the New Mexico Asian Family Center. We stand in support of all students and stand in solidarity of racial equity training throughout APS. APS has a long history of racist incidents that go unaddressed. What happened to these Indigenous students is not an isolated incident, and it is devastating that it's only when Indigenous and people of color raise their voices and expend their energy fighting instead of healing that we get a response. Institutional change needs to be made, especially when not every incident gets addressed. The board has the power to implement policy decisions as a rapid response crisis intervention. Why don't, like, similar to when there's a death, bringing in counselors and offering support to students to address racism. You can't be proactive anymore, but you can react. You have that option. Grieving is not always the death of a person. When Mary Easton cut off that student's braid, she killed a part of her history. So we're asking you now to react and to implement a policy to support our students and create a safer environment. Thank you.
President Piercy, distinguished board members, and Superintendent Reedy. I'm Ginger Koning. I have the privilege of teaching at Barcelona Elementary School to some stellar students with an awesome staff and a fantastic administrator, Kathy Trujillo. On November 28th, our third grade classes went on a field trip to the Albuquerque Museum to see the Hispanic cultural artifacts. As we were viewing the artifacts, the students were approached by several couples that asked them if they were from a private school. The students said, no, they just attend a regular APS public school. And not long after that, they approached the teacher, or one of the teachers, and the couple asked them the same thing because the students were asking such great questions. They were so well behaved. And I just wanted to let you know that in the South Valley, we are working really hard to meet all the students' needs, and our community recognizes it. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Connie Chavez, and I am the grandmother and legal guardian of two 8th grade girls, twin sisters, who are both in special education. And I have been gone for the last month, and so I was appalled to hear the situation that happened in Cibola. So I'm fully in support. I'm going to change my little agenda here today to say that at Taylor Middle School, where one of the girls is enrolled in an SES 1 class, there's not been a teacher in that classroom since the beginning of the school year. There's a social worker part-time and 2 EAs who are running that classroom. There's definitely not enough support nor enough training for teachers, administrators across the board. It's an injustice to our children, and when they get labeled like this young girls at Cibola did, and the kids in the classroom are using racial slurs, they're not being stopped. My granddaughter's been labeled the sped mental girl, and that's how she's known. So imagine that. There needs to be additional training and resources allocated to these schools. But more importantly, there needs to be a teacher, and you need to acknowledge that, and they need the support there. Thank you.
Hey, my name is Melissa So. First, I want to acknowledge that we are on Sandia Pueblo land, other Pueblos, and as well as, Navajo Nation, and we are surrounded by them. And I want to say I am Navajo. I grew up on Navajo Nation. I grew up in a predominantly white high school as well, and been subjected to some of the same derogatory remarks that some of these kids have experienced. And so I definitely see it as like a systemic problem. This is not the first instance where a student felt racially, targeted by this teacher, as well as, other teachers in this school. As we've heard, people are coming out with testimonies. And so it definitely is a problem, and I hope you are listening to people tonight. I don't think training alone is going to help. As a lot of times training is just an image to portray that you are doing something when you're actually not. So it's going to go beyond the training, and we want to see it, in actions, in employees treating, students, with just having an equitable education system. And I also want to also encourage a curriculum that more accurately reflects, our history.
Okay, our last four speakers, Cody, Shauna, maybe? I can't read the handwriting. Christine Means, Deb Gaudette, and Cheryl Linda Bennett.
Hello, my name is Cody Slama. Earlier today, I was really feeling some outrage because I'm a student at UNM, and I was talking to another student there about how often APS fails. And it came to mind because I failed. Well, rather, I don't think I failed. I think APS failed me. Whenever I didn't graduate, whenever I got drunk in the 8th grade, and no one ever talked about it. Closed meetings, you know, within the school to deal with it. Whenever a few weeks later, whenever I got caught with some grass, yeah, nothing. You guys just kicked me out, you know. So I understand how APS often fails, and I'm sorry to your sister, and I want them to continue on strong, you know, like be strong because the system fails. And oh, one more thing before this minute is up. It makes me barf whenever, like, someone with white privilege, right? I acknowledge I have white privilege. Like, someone with white privilege comes up and they're like, they do this at UNM too. They're like, oh, diversity is so great. But I want to make something really clear. Diversity does not end racism.
Thank you.
Talk about things like oppression.
Thank you, Cody.
We need to know how you're dealing with oppression, not how just diversity just happens.
Thank you, Cody.
Hi, good evening. My name is Christine Means, and I am a parent of a student who attends an APS school. And I have one other child who may attend an APS school. I think one of the first requests as a parent that I would have that has a negative effect on Native American students is for the district to ban the wearing of Native American costumes in all APS schools, district-wide. The negative side effects that happen to our children, to children when they see themselves mocked, used as caricatures, used as costumes for other students' entertainment, for other students' fun, is psychologically damaging. This is not just a Native issue, this is a student safety issue. APS has to make it very clear that this behavior is unacceptable. Apathy and inaction condones what this teacher chose to do that day. She made a choice. She is an educated person, educated by the current system that, oh, sorry, my time's up. She's an educated person. She chose to do this today. This was an assault on a student and a minor. If this happened anywhere else, there would have been criminal charges involved.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Deborah Gadet, and I'm a community member here in Albuquerque. And I'm here tonight to address the board to underline something that I heard at the meeting last week, which is a call, a demand for Indigenous studies at APS. It should be required in APS high schools. I mean, one reason for that is what the students said last week, is that a lot of the teachers either were trained, educated themselves at APS or at another public high school and didn't learn, and they can't teach what they don't know, which is real history, the settler colonial context that we're all in. I mean, I ended up with a few different degrees. I've got a degree in chemistry. One thing that really concerns me about what we're facing in New Mexico is poisoning our water with fracking, and they are trying to deep well inject it so we don't have it anymore. Do we understand the context that we're living in? Settler colonial societies create populations that are weak, and we're being preyed upon by the corporations. We don't understand science, and we don't understand the settler colonial context that we're in, and we don't understand our water is being poisoned every day with no plan for cleanup, no plan for us to have water in the future.
Hi, good evening, board. I'd like to really pray for you all to open in your hearts that these braids are sacred. These braids are protection. They're our strength. We braid when we do one of these braids. It's for prayer, you know. And there's kids that have to go to school every day knowing that they have long hair and they'll still get picked on. You know, I've been to APS. I've been to a bunch of different high schools throughout New Mexico, Gallup, Shiprock. I'm from Shiprock. I am Navajo. But we were taught never to touch other people's hair. And for that lady to come for the teacher, a grown woman, to come at a student with a scissor is unacceptable, and it is unethical behavior, and it is just dishonoring in every language that you can imagine. So honor our people, our Native students, because they already come from 500 years plus of oppression.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. That concludes the public forum.
Thank you, Board Member Montoya Cordova. We'll go on to special issues. If people want to leave, we'll give you a time to leave, or if you want to stay around, that's fine. We have the introduction to Framework for Career and Technical Education. That's a discussion item. Presenters are Dr. Madeline Cerna-Marmol, Associate Superintendent of Office of Equity, Instruction and Support, Amelia Milazzo, Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction, and Cheryl Williams, CTE Coordinator Director. Little bell does help, doesn't it? It does help. Without us saying words, it pisses everybody off. You know? So yeah, that was very good. Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting process. There's obviously a similar.
Good evening, Dr. Piercy, members of the board, and Superintendent Reedy. It's a privilege to be here this evening to speak to you about our CTE framework. I'd like to introduce Amy Milazzo, our Executive Director of Curriculum Instruction, and Dr. Cheryl Williams, our Director of CTE, Career Tech Ed, to speak to you about our framework tonight. Thank you.
Dr. Piercy, members of the board, Superintendent Reedy, thank you for allowing me time to present you with a proposed framework for career and technical education for Albuquerque Public Schools. I'm joined by Dr. Cheryl Williams, Director of APS CTE, who's available to answer specific questions you may have. And do we have the PowerPoint? There we go. So goal 2 of our academic master plan addresses college and career readiness, and our CTE department plays a crucial role in meeting that need for our students. Tonight, I will briefly outline 4 goals that will align district resources and provide expanded advisement and educational opportunities for all students. We have a number of very strong programs in our high schools, as you can see by our recognitions tonight, and we would like to continue to support and grow these programs. While we don't have every pathway in every high school in APS, most of our pathways are available in each of our learning zones for our students, and we're quite proud of that. So the support for our students begins at the student's home school. Most students' first experience with a CTE course begins at their home high school as a way to explore possible interest or aptitude. For some students, this is the beginning of a pathway that culminates in certification, a college major, or a career. And for others, it's just a way to test the water and to see where their interests and abilities lie. Many of our current programs of study terminate in certifications, as you can see, and we'd like to increase these opportunities for students to obtain certifications and possible stacked credentials that could be used to enter the workplace in high-paying jobs following graduation. Here's some additional certifications. We have so many certifications, we couldn't even fit them on one slide. I'm pretty proud of also. So what support for our schools looks like. Supporting our schools means ensuring that career courses and pathways we promote are supported by data that says there's well-paying jobs available in those fields, so that we're aligning our college and career education to the actual needs of the marketplace and preparing students for jobs that exist in our communities. Making sure that our administrative counselors and other teachers are aware of the benefits of career and technical education for all of our students, so that we can encourage students to explore these courses earlier in their high school careers. We must also begin exposing students earlier in their to career exploration and research, so that they can make truly informed decisions about the path that they will select for their futures. So we would like to propose that students at every grade begin researching and exploring information about potential careers. For our second goal, because one of the benefits of CTE is the ability to teach and reinforce the kind of soft skills that our students will need in the workplace, our goal number 2 is embedding the common career technical core practices in all CTE courses. These career-ready practices apply to all programs of study. The career-ready practices include 12 statements that address the knowledge, skills, and dispositions that are important to becoming career-ready. These are kind of a CTE version of the 21st century skills and would be applicable to all students, not just students enrolled in CTE courses, college-bound students as well. These practices are already being taught through CTE. What we're recommending is making this teaching explicit so that students can readily identify the skills and mindsets that they're acquiring. So as they leave education in our schools, they can identify that they have not only mastered content in some areas, but they have also mastered the skills that will make them successful employees and citizens. Oh, golly. So goal 3 addresses increasing access for all students to industry quality equipment and state-of-the-art instruction through specially designed facilities and business partnerships. This is what we're proposing is an expansion that would build on current areas of success to really solidify pathways for students. So the proposal involves a couple of what I'm calling, for lack of a better term, tech centers. Tech centers are at the heart of many state and district reform around career and technical education. They allow districts to really maximize efficient use of specialized equipment so that state-of-the-art equipment can be used. They maximize human capital, finding highly qualified CTE teachers who are up to date in all the latest industry skills. They're a valuable and rare resource, and it's important for us to really maximize access to that resource so that all students are able to access that. CEC currently functions as a sort of hub by leveraging transportation to provide equitable access for all students in specialized programs, and has been a successful model in the district for 40 years. What we're proposing is an expansion of a model that's already been successful to APS and broadening the range of programs that students have access to. This would also create a central point of contact for business partners wishing to support a pathway through work-based learning opportunities. So we're proposing an additional tech hub in a northern or western location in the city that would be served by the same network of buses that we use for CEC, and would house an additional series of pathways that students could access, and would, like I said, be a contact point for industry for mentorships and internships in those areas. So CEC would continue to support the strong programs that it has. For both of these tech hubs, we would leverage flexible scheduling to allow upper class students to take their core classes at their home high school and pursue certifications and dual credit aligned to pathways at a central location, so that they could be both completely students at their home high schools and have sequences of upper level classes in CTE that would let them stack certifications with dual credit classes aligned to the pathway. So the final goal 4 is about aligning all of those resources that we have for students to make these choices. It's the final piece of tying everything together to assure that students are college and career ready. One of the big changes that we have is no longer is education college or career. Now it's college and career, essentially. We want to prepare all students for all options for their lives. As we know, students will need additional training after high school for most of them, whether it be a vocational program or trade school or a college education. And all of our students, even those entering four-year college programs, will need those workplace readiness skills that will allow them to be productive employees. So aligning all of these together rather than siloing them in separate areas is important. So we would create a college and career readiness department that would align the work of CTE with college prep in AVID, advanced placement through the College Board, and dual credit coursework, so that a student could essentially mix and match a program of studies to meet their individual needs, and all of those areas would be more closely aligned. Most of the resources we need are already available in the district. What we really need is to tie them together in a thoughtful way and communicate clearly their availability. So that pathway would start with students helping to build a pathway, starting to understand what their career options were and begin exploring at their home school. We would give them those career skills and 21st century skills that they need to be successful in the workplace. We would create an expansion of opportunities and pathways for them to access, and then we would coordinate all of those resources together and make them more transparent so that students could more fully realize how they can put the pieces together to make a college and career plan for themselves. And with that, Dr. Williams and I stand for questions.
Great, thank you very much, Emily. I'll open that up to the board. Board Member Garcia.
It's lovely to hear where your mind is on this topic that we're all interested in. Thank you for your leadership and what I think is a great presentation. But I wonder, do we have any data that we know of at this point in terms of numbers of students who are exploring careers, who are getting certificates, and who have actually become placed in these various pathways that you've described, whether it's mechanics or nursing? I know that with CEC and their nursing program, we have some idea. And what I've been told every time I've gone down there is that a number of the students actually go on to get their nurse practitioner degree, but they have a jump start on nursing. So I'm just wondering, do we have, is this information kept in some way that we can get an idea to glean of the 80-some thousand students and the numbers eligible? How many are actually in these programs and how many are moving on?
So, and I can defer to Dr. Williams, but we do keep data on student enrollment, participation in certification programs and certificates. If you're asking about employment after graduation aligned to that pathway, Cheryl, do you have data on that?
I'm asking about both.
Right.
Good evening, board members. We do have a follow-up program through the PED and the Workforce Solutions Center, and they go after the students through their ID numbers because we do not keep track of Social Security numbers. And so we have gotten some of that data. We utilize that data within our Carl Perkins program when we have to report to the feds how many of our students take 2 or more sequence of courses, rigorous courses that concentrated in, for example, automotive technology or construction technology, computer-aided drafting, which is the CAD classes, and our pre-engineering classes. And so we know of the students that go on to UNM, and we know of the students that goes on to CNM. Through the Workforce Solutions, we're able to track the students that go out into the world of work.
Okay. I would love to hear a presentation that has some of those details by quadrant or by school if possible, including CEC. Thank you.
Other comments? Board Member Peterson.
So I'm curious, for the Tech Lab North, would that be the Wagner building that we've been talking about, or is there another facility?
It could potentially be the Wagner building. Because I didn't put a name on anything because that property hasn't been purchased, but I have met with Mr. Wajenji to discuss that as an option.
But that is still a possibility and still in the works. What additional resources do we need to come up with to make this happen?
So in the near term, I will be putting together a proposal for our Budget Steering Committee requesting a senior director position to coordinate all the work of that college and career readiness department. In addition, I'd like a district level coordinator for internships and mentorships because I'd like to get busy right away on that. And I'm going to ask for a 0.2 allocation for each high school so that each high school can house on site an internship mentorship coordinator aligned to whatever pathways they have at their school.
I wonder if that can possibly be wrapped into our legislative agenda. There may be some legislative support for
We happen to have a legislator nearby.
Shocking.
In regards to the legislature, and you ask what else resources that we may be able to do, I am suggesting that APS put into their legislative requests, not simply to each individual legislator that represents the schools within their district, but at a larger level to be aware of the fact that if you create such a situation and such an environment to move forward for career readiness on the world of work, we need to have state-of-the-art equipment that is available and ready within the services to provide to the students. Therefore, at the point in time where the state is saying there's a massive funding in related to monies within state government and one-time capital outlay funding is available at this time, I suggest that APS legislative branch get together and make sure that state-of-the-art equipment is being requested for such a time as this. Keeping in mind that I just want to say that in our discussion, we've been told that Rio Rancho Public Schools is now about to create a vocational CTE high school. And the reason I know that is because I've been promoting the possibility of having a hub in regards regionally for tech center. And to have that tech center, we do need that because our students in APS are winning in the state, we're winning regionally, but when we go nationally, we're coming in third, we're coming in fourth and fifth, when we can be coming in first, because at times we do not have the state-of-the-art equipment available to them to practice on and to have best practices that would take them to the level that they need to go.
So it sounds like, I'm just trying to think what this will look like. It seems like then the FTE portion should just be insufficient funding in the SEG, but there may be specific funding for facilities that we should be working towards.
Right. I think it's twofold. So I think there's FTE funding in terms of getting some immediate coordination, planning, and increasing the opportunities for mentorships, internships, which I think is a real valid need in all of our schools. But down the road, is if we start to develop a tech hub, that involves multiple kinds of capital spending and planning and legislative requests and capital requests and such.
And then just real briefly, what more should we be doing to develop the partnerships with other entities like the building trades and other folks that can support the training process in some way?
So, so we already have many of those relationships. Cheryl and her teachers have built, I have a pretty extensive list of relationships, but as we look to develop new relationships, one of the things that I think tech hubs could function as is single points of contact for those pathways, so that when business community wanted to make a connection, they knew where to go, because part of the challenge with APS is knowing who to call or where to go or how to even offer your help. So I think that we could advertise those as points of contact for those pathways.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Pearson?
Yes, Board Member Montoya-Cordova.
So I'm excited to hear some of the pieces on this, because this is obviously close to Workforce Solutions and the work that we're doing in some of the additional work we have going on with CTE across the state. I want to respond, Board Member Garcia, in terms of the data and the connection with that. I think the problem with it is that it's limited to Carl Perkins. And I think what you're looking at is the number of students outside of those that maybe are not always supported through the Carl Perkins funding that are also getting those related certificates and what's happening to them in terms of employment past that. Dr. Williams is correct, because we do have the data at Workforce Solutions. In terms of students, we know we have employment data because we have to report that to the Department of Labor. So, but it's absolutely correct. We collect data according to like Social Security numbers, not by the student ID numbers. So there is a tremendous amount of data that's available, but somehow how we connect that data so that it could become richer and a way to really sort of emphasize or really highlight the impact that APS is having on employment post those secondary our credentials or the other credentials that we're getting for students when they choose not to go to UNM, or they're not going out to CNM, but they've earned a credential of some sort while they were at APS. So there might be some strategies that I think we need to think about how that could look. But I know it also needs to be a partnership with PED, because PED is also part of the issue there, because of the combining of information. You've got FERPA and you've got protected information here, and how we balance that. But I think it can be done. I think there's an opportunity there. I just want to say that I'm excited to see that it's an integrated curriculum, and you're talking about building soft skills at a much earlier age and starting to introduce the concept of skills that we need for work as we're getting, as we're growing, because every student needs that. We're hearing from the business industry that it's the soft skills side of it that is not coming in. And I'm just even thinking about like the conversation tonight, the whole issue of just even cultural humility in terms of how that's practiced in a workplace is really important, and it's something that could start to be taught at a really early age so that we have people that are prepared when they're going into workplaces, and hopefully we're also part of that. We're able to set that in motion. Some of my questions that I had were predominantly around the development of this plan, and to me, it looks like there was a lot of work done internally, like what is APS going to do with APS? And I was curious about the strategy around really engaging with the business partners and the business community so that it's, that they're also helping to inform so that we can be flexible as a school district as the business industry is also changing, because we might be preparing now for jobs that we know are available now, but we also know that there are jobs that are going to occur that none of us even know are going to occur yet. But we have to be at that partnership level with the business industry so that we can make sure that we're adept and we're flexible and we're always moving along. So even though we're moving towards like a tech hub, but that tech hub has to be flexible. It has to be responsive to the needs of the business community so that we can make sure that we're also preparing students for what the business industry is asking us. So are there plans in this to include or have some sort of like advisory council or committee that includes the business industry partners to help us really develop our work?
So I'll let Dr. Williams talk about, we have business advisories currently for each of our pathways, and I'll let her talk a little bit about that.
Great question. And the reason it's great because I currently have in place plans to have a round-robin discussion with the business partners that we currently have, and based on the program of studies or the pathways that we currently have in Albuquerque Public Schools. And we have quite a few major business partners, some that are in our advisory teams that work with our students that are going towards UNM, and some that are in our advisory teams with our students that are going to CNM. But overall, we have a major group of our business partners that are looking for students who are leaving the public school system and want to be able to go ready to work and to provide those skills. And so my belief is if the board was to collectively work with me in that round-robin situation, where we have our business partners as teams with each one of you and your zone superintendents, hearing from them what their needs are for their businesses and what they think that we as APS should be able to provide to our students to enable them to be able to be workforce ready. Mm-hmm. And so the plan is already set, and I will give further information on that. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. The other question I had was, you talked about the 12 career-ready practices, and yes. How are those going to be evaluated?
Well, I'll be just real honest. I hadn't even thought about that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't really gotten that far.
Okay. And so I think as we're looking at our framework, I'm really curious about how students are moving through this framework, the feedback that they're getting, right. And the kind of preparedness so that they're actually knowing where they are, whether they're on track or they're not on track. What is some of the feedback that they're getting so that they can move through the pieces and knowing that they're making progress. The other thing I just wanted to mention too is I agree 100% with the internship and the mentorship piece, and making sure that that's existing at each high school. Because what we do know is that an internship, mentorship placement for students in terms of work is a huge resiliency factor. For those young people that have an opportunity to enter into any kind of meaningful work experience or internship experience, it's going to prepare them just 100-fold to make that decision about their career or their college pathway. So, but I know it takes a lot of energy and work to do that, because and hopefully that this person is not hung up in a classroom, but really is in the community, that can actually be beating the pavement, building those relationships with the business industry, so that we have those partnerships where students can have a meaningful placement and a mentorship. And then finally, the only thing that I want to add to is, I lost my thought. I was so excited. Because this is my area. This is the part that we're working. I get so excited about it.
Give you a pause. It's
okay. Oh, darn. It lost my, it went out of my brain. I was thinking about the internship and the mentorship piece. Yeah, come back to me, because I know I'll have it in the back of my brain. But I am excited. I think that there's a lot of opportunity with our department, Workforce Solutions, having set a youth engagement coordinator purposefully so that we could work specifically with schools around the pieces that they're doing, so that they can develop really strong programs, and how can we be a consultant and advisor in that piece as we're moving along, because there are a tremendous amount of resources, and it's a marrying of the incredible investment that's made in our state through US DOL already, and whether it's money that's coming through our agency or even through our VR agencies, because they also have money to prepare students with disabilities, and we need to make sure that we're taking advantage of those opportunities. And one of the things that I'm charged with at this level, at the state level, is to make sure that those partnerships exist, so that we're actually using the money and we're using it well, and that we're actually preparing young people in a much more coherent way. So thank you. If I have that question, it'll come back to me.
Okay. Let me see if Elizabeth is still on the line. I keep forgetting that we have a person on the line. Liz, are you still there?
Oh, absolutely.
Why don't you chime in a little bit here and see if you've got any questions after Yolanda has told us everything.
Yolanda hit all of the questions that I...
Well, apparently not one. She's still got one in the back of her mind. She's waiting to see if you've got that question, I think.
She couldn't remember it. However, it's really good to hear that there is a business advisory on each one of the pathways, so that was exciting to hear about. I'm interested to know, though, if there are, and I'm sorry if I didn't hear this, but I was listening really well. I'm interested to know if the economic development groups are part of that business advisory group.
That's a Cheryl question.
Okay. In addition to that, I was going to ask the folks to expand just a little bit more on the internships and mentorships. I was also curious, in the presentation you talked about there's a number of new certifications that are under review for approval, and I was just wondering if we could hear about a couple of those.
See, I think there are three things there. You can keep them in your mind.
And I remember the last one.
There you go. Well, start with the last one and then work your way back.
The first one, there are groups, there are businesses within the Economic Forum that participates. One of those is Sandia Base, another is PNM, and another is Intel.
Sandia Labs does good.
Yes, Sandia Labs. They all are in that Economic Forum part, but they do participate individually with our teachers and our schools. For example, Sandia Labs participate with La Cueva. With the pathways that we do have at La Cueva. And PNM participates very well with the pathways that we have at Albuquerque High School. And that's just an example of some of the individualized businesses that are part of the Economic Forum. And you had a second and a third question, and I don't remember the second one.
That's okay. It's great to hear that those are
Yeah, the internships.
We currently have internships but we have job mentorship through the city of Albuquerque at most of the high schools. APS used to, in the past, have a strong mentorship internship program. A few years when it was lean, the funding was cut. Therefore, there was not a, when Yolanda Garcia retired, there didn't become a coordinator that would coordinate that activity. However, many of our teachers in the career technical education area teaches their classes in the morning, and then some of them in the afternoon starting 1:30. Their students are out in the internship mentorship program, and those teachers work collectively with the business partners and their advisory teams on the growth of employability skills for those students. So it does exist. It does not exist in every high school.
And the third question was?
I would hope that our economic development groups, our economic development partners, I hope that we are a pitch. I hope that APS and our public schools are part of their pitch to, as they bring in businesses into our state and our community. And one last final thing is my own personal experience. Early in life, I worked on a 9-month certificate program degree through C&M, and one of the questions that Lorenzo asked is actually one of the things that I was interested in, is how many kids go on to achieve additional education or higher education. And it was being comfortable with attending C&M through that 9-month certificate degree program on commercial printing that I was able to feel comfortable enough to go on and work on my bachelor's degree in communication and journalism. So I think it can be a pathway, and it can open doors for students who may not be comfortable with higher education at that time in their life. So I do appreciate having this pathway for our students as well. Thank you.
Good. Board Member Patterson.
I think all the questions have been asked, and that's a good thing. But, you know, one of the things that I want to know, how would you look at curriculum, unless Board Member Montecarlo was...
She's got all the answers too.
She's got a question here. Okay, how would this look at the elementary school level? I mean, how would you start this curriculum? What would it look like?
So I think rather than curriculum, it needs to be conversations.
Conversations?
Need to start happening. So
how would you do that?
At an elementary school level, I mean, I think some of the old school stuff that we used to do, like career days and bring a parent in to talk about what they do for a living, just having those conversations about what jobs are even out there is a really good way for kids to start. Current reading materials are more centered on nonfiction text, so increasingly there's nonfiction text available to students that exposes them to different kinds of career areas, but just having that exposure so that students aren't aware of only the careers that exist in their own families.
Okay, wonderful. Exposure. Lots of. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. We're also starting AVID pathways in elementary schools, and so we're starting to do that pilot programs in Zone 2 right now.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Board Member Muller-Aragon.
And I was going to go to the elementary because
that's where you are.
Elementary teacher. So I think that's important. I mean, we know how kids, their play is like their work. So if you kind of look at that, it's easy to figure out how to work that in at an elementary level. Middle school, I have no idea, but so I think it's important to try to get those kind of pathways started earlier.
So off but on topic, one of my areas of concern has been that aptitude identification identifies a large number of minority and female students for STEM careers that they don't self-identify as an interest. So one of the things that I would like to do is start giving some aptitude testing in the middle school to identify students as for areas that they may not have self-identified as areas of strength.
And do you do that? Is that done for the high school pathways? I mean, is there an aptitude test that they do at the high school level?
Not comprehensively. There are work keys and other various tests that are used sporadically, but we don't have a, my opinion is we don't have a good and comprehensive system for having students explore their aptitudes and their interests, and then more importantly, tying that information to what do you do about that? What courses do you take in high school? What dual credit courses do you take? What careers utilize those skills? And how might you explore those through an internship or mentorship?
Right. I mean, I think that's really quite important. Because sometimes they might start on a path and then they're like, and if they would have known ahead of time, they wouldn't have used that time where they're like, this is just not for me. And we know that's happened to lots of people that we know. Another thing that I would like to know is these different pathways. As Member Garcia, I would like to know what schools they're at. So I would like to know what's at Volcano Vista. You know, I don't.
We can certainly give you that information.
What's at Cibola? You know, I mean, we're talking about Learning Zone 3. I know a lot of these are out of my district. I mean, I know that they're out of my district, and so I would just like to know what's there.
We can
So
absolutely
if we could make
give you
sure
that information.
and do that. That would be helpful to pass that on to. Well, I was
by school.
I wasn't talking about. I was talking about my
Volcano
school, my
Vista,
zone.
Volcano Vista, and Cibola. Cibola has automotive technology, has marketing, fundamentals of marketing. It has culinary arts, ProStart at Cibola, for example, and at Volcano Vista, they have a massive, great automotive shop, but they don't have a teacher.
Right. That's what Dr. Bannerman had said.
Yeah, but they also have audio and film at Volcano Vista, and they have culinary arts ProStart at Volcano Vista. They have marketing, and they have journalism. They have quite a few.
Okay, that'd be good to have on all the high schools. I think
listing,
that would be a good thing just to have to be able to pass on.
We can provide you with that information along with what certifications are offered at each.
Right, that would be wonderful. And then I know you were talking about the tech centers and having everything centralized. So when you're talking about businesses obviously aren't centralized, what will that look like at the tech centers?
In terms of the business relationship to the tech center, so potentially some of the learning would happen as part of a work-based situation. So potentially students would be bused from a tech center to a work site to do learning. Potentially, business partners could come to a tech center and do an informational night for students on careers and things like that. I think it could be a very flexible arrangement. I think some of the learning, depending on the level of the facilities, could happen on-site with business members co-teaching with a licensed teacher here. They could happen off-site at a business location. Some of those models, Running Start for Careers was done through the city that had several of those models where dual credit courses were taught by business members, but we granted high school credit. So I think there's a lot of potential for flexible arrangements that could happen.
Okay. And then I know when you were talking about like a Tech Lab North or West, I'm going to, of course, go, I have to. But when we're kind of looking at CEC and then we're looking at someplace else that's near the valley, I just think that we need to think about those people coming from, Atrisco Heritage and coming from Volcano Vista. And that's still, if you drive, all the way to Rio Grande, I mean, it's still a long distance. Right. So I think that we need to keep in mind what's going to be best for the students.
Right.
as always, that's what we should think of first. So, you know.
So one of my rationales and my sort of non-negotiables is that this would include transportation in the model that exists now, so that if a student could get to their home high school, be it a Trisco Heritage or Volcano Vista or whatever, that an APS bus would take them to one of these hubs if they didn't want to drive or didn't have a driver's license yet, or.
And transportation.
And transportation, yeah, it's huge.
To many people, so we want to make sure that that is definitely
absolutely
included. And then I know you had talked about aligning that if you came up with this new department, it would help with aligning resources and coursework. But I'm kind of going, how much? I would have everything completely different than what we do when it comes to kids being able to choose courses. I think that they should have way more flexibility in choosing courses, but they can't really deviate that much from what's required, right?
Actually, students have, so one of the things that we're finding now that's becoming, actually quite frankly, becoming a bit of a problem is kids having a little bit of too much free time on their hands by the time they're seniors.
Correct.
They have a fair number of electives, plus as students are accessing dual credit classes, they're getting one full credit in a semester, so they're sort of acquiring elective credits at double the pace, and often they're taking that after the school day. So we find that students have, by the time they're juniors and seniors, have a lot more flexibility in their schedule than they've had in the past, but we don't always have a lot of options for them. So they have the availability.
Provide those
right.
options for those children.
Absolutely.
That are finishing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then really kind of the last thing, I know businesses know what they need. So speaking, as Representative Williams was saying, it's like speaking to the businesses is really important because they know exactly what they need. And they, as every business that I have spoken to, they want to work with the kids. They want to have internships and mentorships. They want to be involved. So we need to make sure that they really, truly are, because they know better than we do what they need out there. And then the last thing is, when you're talking about creating a new department, which I'm always skeptical of, is how much is that going to cost?
So the new department would be one new senior director who would oversee the work.
And I know you already went through that.
Right.
I just kind of want the dollar amount of what you think with the senior director.
A total for senior director, an internship coordinator at the district level, and then a .2 FTE at each school would be in the neighborhood of $440,000.
A year?
A year, and that works on the premise that teacher salaries will increase. $500K. And includes benefits.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask one more quick thing?
Sure.
And
You're on.
I thought of your question.
I apologize because of my visual. I was just curious if Mr. Patrick Arguelles was in the audience.
Mr. Patrick Arguelles certainly is in the audience.
Happens to be. Even though.
Do you have a question?
Is that your question?
Is he in the audience? Yes.
The answer is yes. Or do you have a follow-up on that?
No, it's just this framework and this conversation is one that we've had with him multiple times, so I was just curious if he was in the audience.
Yes, absolutely. And Patrick and I have been in conversation about the various iterations of this for probably a year now.
Okay, now I'm going to go back to Yolanda because I want to see if she's really thought about her question.
Yeah, it was. So my concern was, I'm concerned about equity and the issue of students going off-site because I know that that's not necessarily available to all of our students. So there are some students that even though dual credit's available, it's not readily available for them for a number of reasons. One, they're either not really ready to be on an off-site campus because they need extra supports, or they may not get the support that they need at a C&M campus or at another campus. And so I'm concerned about that. And then I'm concerned about the internship, mentorship piece, and that it's readily available to all students and not just the students that are receiving CTE support.
So to kind of tie into that. So I met with Transition Services last week to talk about ways that we could remove barriers for special education students to access all of these pathways and internships and mentorships at a higher level, because I think that currently we have, not just for them, but for all students, some barriers that we need to be really thoughtful about removing. And dual credit is one of those. So one of the advantages to having some centers is we can offer increasingly, and even in our comprehensive high schools, we're offering dual credit classes on our campuses, taught either with a facilitation by our teachers and a teacher of record at UNM or CNM, or often CNM hiring on our teachers to teach those courses. So I think that is evolving in a way to give people more access to those courses.
It makes a lot of sense because we're using the existing infrastructure too.
Right, right.
We're not having to create new buildings
Absolutely.
Or new places. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. You all have covered most of what I think. So, if I kind of summarize here, I think one of the things that you need to do is to work with the policy analyst and the legislation to see what is available from a legislative point of view in terms of funding, in terms of the kinds of things that we need to have for CTE. I think we need to flesh out this business advisory model. In other words, how do all these things fit together? You know, I heard your pathway idea, and you got the business things for the pieces, the pathways, but I don't see how that all really fits together, like CNM, UNM, Workforce Solutions, JAG, you know, all the different pieces. And then all the industry partners. I mean, I talked with you, and you gave me this list of 71 or whatever it is, right? Well, how do they work how do they know what's going on, right? And you mentioned, you know, having the tech hubs and having people have a central point kind of thing. Well, how does that whole group kind of work is kind of the idea. And there's a lot of things that we're doing here in our schools. I like that a lot because it's available to students. Like you said, the access is an issue. But I also think of the facilities as more of a virtual model. In other words, there's some in our schools, there's some in other schools, there's some in the Wagner facility, there's some in the Carpenters Union, where they're a big facility. So all these facilities kind of form kind of a virtual CEC. Virtual model is where things are, right? And so we need to have that really clear for our students so they know kind of where are those things exactly, how are they being done. And I'll guarantee if you want state-of-the-art equipment, the Wagner facility. There's nothing like that. For the diesel automotive, for our bus repairs, we could have all of our bus repairs there at the Wagner facility. We could have the students be part of that. That's a huge, wonderful facility with all that, what I call state-of-the-art equipment for doing that. That's amazing kind of a facility. I think it's very important to baseline where you are now. As far as, I mean, as best you can, figure out what metrics are useful to you and where are we now. Because if you start going down this road and now we're not sure where we were and we're not sure where we're going, and so it's really important. I mean, even you mentioned the 12 areas, well, maybe that's part of it, and some of it's very difficult to measure how you want to do that. But whatever you can do to kind of baseline where you are will be important, because if you can show where you're making improvements and then where you're not, and then what do I have to do in that area, right? So I think that's important. And I'm a big all students. In other words, I think all students ought to be required to take experiential learning stuff, and from almost anywhere. You mentioned elementary school. Elementary school is easy. Easy to do experiential learning. I mean, just let them out on the playground. You're going to see a lot of experiential learning there. But just, you know, have them do things, you know, build stuff, try stuff. You know, that's experiential learning, right? You know, I'd like to make a requirement that all of our students take financial literacy, period. And they have to use that. I mean, you're used to project management, right? Project-based learning, right? Yeah. You have to link your as a student, your financial literacy with something that deals with CTE. Now, I don't care if it's construction. I don't care if it's whatever, right? you have to apply your financial literacy. It could be taxes, it could be lots of things, but in some kind of project that enables you to understand how to manage these things. Very, very important kind of thing. So, and we ought to have financial literacy as a core. You can take that as a core math course, period.
It actually is. It's a fourth-year math course as an option, not a requirement, though.
Not a requirement. It's not.
It's a requirement
we have
for
to
my
have.
son, 'cause
We
I
have
wanna
to have.
pay
We have to have 4 years. That could be 1 year, right?
Yeah.
Could be, right? And again, I think all of our students need to be involved in these things. I think it's good for them. And I like the access issues that we have, you know, all the way from special ed to these kids we think are brilliant and are going to be whatever they are going to be, you know. They ought to be taking these things because it's very, very useful for them to get practical experience. I probably learned more in my summers working for Mobil Oil up in Piance Creek drilling than most of my college, to tell you the truth. Those guys were no nonsense. You don't get near my drill until you learn what you're doing. I mean, safety was number one. I mean, I learned a lot from those guys. I never did get forearms as big as theirs. But, you know, and not only that, but they were very practical about how they did things, you know what I mean? It was a great learning experience. So I think this is really important for our students. And, you know, I like where you're going here. I think we've got some pieces here. You've heard from a lot of the board members about some things that are useful. And so keep working on it and keep coming back to us with more about how this is all fitting together, you know. I like the goals, that's great, you know, that, but I'm kind of visual, you know. I need a diagram. I need something that tells me how it all fits together, you know, and I think that would help. Okay. So thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, super. Okay, we'll go on to our next item here, which is the Government Affairs update, which is a presentation by Dr. Heather Dahl and Dr. Joseph Escobedo, Government Affairs team. This was postponed from an earlier meeting. Hopefully we can get it in tonight. There's an awful lot in there, so I hope you guys can. I hope you guys can summarize
high
this.
Because it's pretty far in the past, some of it now. But I will just say, as a transition, CTE programs we know are a big part of our conversation with our legislative agenda. So that includes sufficiency conversations so that the district can have local control decisions about CTE as well as capital outlay requests. So we will be working on a few district level requests that will include CTE equipment as well as the individual site ones for individual schools. So my own daughter's taken EMT at CEC this year. I think she's a much nicer student because of that experience. She's out of here now. She heard it. So just as a quick overview of the LESC that happened last month, because next week is the next session of LESC, so we'll have more information on that. I outlined kind of 5 of the presentations that I thought might be worth looking into, and I'll give you some bullet points on them, and I have longer notes if you want me to send them to you if one of these piques your interest to learn more. The first one was a school accountability kind of framework conversation about socio-emotional learning and school climate. And it was a presentation to suggest ways in which we can build school climate into accountability reporting and as well as skills integrated across curriculum. So not for state accountability purposes, but more for to trigger supports, much like what you see happening with APS and the performance frameworks now. So we seem to be online with that presentation. The second one, the next presentation that I wanted to highlight for you was the teacher recruitment and retention. Again, a lot of stuff that we've heard to presentations to the school board leading up to this legislative session. We heard from the Ed Rising regional coordinator, who's also a teacher in Albuquerque, UNM, on this presentation about the UNM partnership, and also programs about teacher loan programs. So those were presentations about statewide efforts for teacher retention and recruitment, and not APS specific. The third one is building a highly effective public education system. This was the presentation led by Dr. Linda Darling-Hammond and Jeannie Oakes. They referenced the No Time to Lose report, so it's stuff that we've heard before too. They talk about supports and equitable resources as a way to build highly effective school systems. They talked about enabling success rather than waiting for failure, so building in support systems to do that. They looked at suggestions for new accountability systems that can offer, warning systems and meaningful learning, and talked a lot about well-trained teachers in that report as a part of what makes a highly effective public education system. The fourth presentation, just to let you know about, is the retiree healthcare. So it's not ERB, but the retiree healthcare system. And they presented lots of charts and graphs that I can share about how their plans to get to solvency. And they ended with their legislative updates and PED rule that would help them do that, which includes, everybody now is grandfathered in, but instituting a minimum retirement age for full vested benefits for retiree healthcare is one of the mechanisms for solvency. And then the last presentation from the LESC hearings last month to highlight is the teacher evaluation. Again, Linda Darling-Hammond and Jeannie Oakes returned for that presentation. They talked about teacher evaluation systems should be a source, not just to label a teacher, but a way to create effective teaching. They talked about clear standards for evaluation practices. What does it mean to be a good teacher? Is they feel like there's been mixed messages in the past about what that means, and that it should connect to meaningful professional development. I don't know why this is so weird. They had a top 10 for effective teachers kind of list. It felt like maybe 17 or 18 bullets, but I did figure out the 10. Some of those things were effective teachers' evaluation should focus on performance. There should be multiple measures to reflect instructional practice. There should be multiple measures to assess student learning. There should be high quality professional development and collaboration. So all of those things in both of the Linda Darling-Hammond and Jeannie Oakes presentations are things that I think have resonated well with our legislative conversations. They've resonate well with the No Time to Lose report and the presentations you've heard from Senator Stewart here. So it was just an overall comment. I think it's nice to see that most of what people are talking about going into this session seem to line up. And now Dr. Escobedo is going to talk to you about the PED rules that are being proposed right now.
Mr. President, members of the board, and Superintendent Reedy, since we last updated you, there have been 6 new administrative rules that have been proposed. And in your packets, we are keeping a running list that is from January to November, and I haven't tabulated all of the rules. I can tell you that we did provide a general comment on every rule that we recommend to any administration when there's a gubernatorial change that is impending, that rules should not be proposed within 6 months of a gubernatorial change because of concerns of, understanding how the rule's going to be implemented and the burden that it places on local school districts in implementing a policy and then maybe reversing that policy, in just a few months down the road. So I just wanted to make sure you knew about that. The first one that was proposed is putting the grading of public schools and public school accountability into rule. We did work with Mr. Melendres to provide a very comprehensive letter, which we can provide to you. That letter basically first states that the rule is in violation of state statute, and we have major concerns about the requirements of school takeover and the school options when a school isn't meeting accountability based on a test that we have concerns that is not valid and reliable. There was also a rule regarding charter school application and appeal requirements. Again, that rule is basically that would infringe on local control of you as an authorizer. Even though the words in there are may instead of shall, we do have concerns about long-term impact of that. New Mexico Computer Science Standards, that is a rule by Ms. Milazzo and her team weighed in on. We do support the rule, but again, we have concerns about it being implemented and proposed before a gubernatorial transition. The Teacher Leader Development Network and mentorship programs for beginning teachers were also two rules that were proposed. Again, we have concerns because it's based off of a teacher evaluation system that only allows teachers who are exemplary to participate in those programs, and we know that there are many teachers who could benefit and supporting other teachers who are not labeled exemplary. And then finally, there will be a hearing next week about background checks for educator licensure. Our Human Resources Department and Police Department did review that rule. They do support it, but again, we have concerns about the rule being implemented during a gubernatorial transition. So finally, you'll note we are expressing concerns on Title II funding. We will be working with Cabinet to take other concerns. In fact, we did meet with Dr. Muir's department last week. One item we will be adding is because of lack of funding, the Children's Youth and Families Department have given their child abuse investigations over to other entities such as the Albuquerque Police Department, and they are not fully trained to do those investigations. And so we want to just keep track of these issues because we need to make sure that they're investigated properly, because just as a reminder, there's a statutory requirement that any employee of the school district report child abuse, which happens daily, and we are concerned about the way those investigations have been handled recently. So we'll be taking those and we'll be adding that to the list so that we can pass that on to the transition team and to the new administration. So we stand for questions.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate that summary. I was having a hard time summarizing myself, for my own benefit. So thank you very much. Board member comments.
Just thanks for
Board member Peterson.
Yeah, thanks for the summary. I think the most appalling thing is that many of the rules changes are things that have been heard and rejected in legislation over the last 8 years. So it's just a little appalling that they're being implemented by rule with virtually no input at this point. So, but thanks for the update. It's helpful.
Other comments? Board member Garcia.
I just have a question with regards to the rules. So what is the process? These are proposals or are they declarations? I'm not sure.
So we have done that research, and I thought I put it at the top, but I can re-put it into the document. But the requirement, and I believe it's the State Compilation and Administrative Rules Division of New Mexico, requires that any public or state entity who is proposing an administrative rule, they have a comment period. They post it for 30 days. They allow a public comment that is taken in written form, and that they have a hearing, and then it is really up to the cabinet level secretary to make those rules final. So that is the only requirement in states. It's not even the state statute, it's an administrative rule. That rules the administrative rules.
But does the legislature sanction these rules? Is there some way that there's a kind of check and balance in the system, or are we just seeing this as a last-minute barrage of rules on the part of PED?
Mr. President and Mr. Garcia, you know, I think that there is a concern, and that's why we expressed the concern about having rules that are proposed within 6 months of an impending gubernatorial transition, whether it's, and so that's why we worded it that way. And so we want to make sure that, you know, if a governor's up for election and they're still operating and could be operating, that's one thing. But when there's an impending gubernatorial transition where we know there will be an administrative change, we recommend that shouldn't take place. And so it is up to the cabinet level secretary to make the final determination of those. And I equate it to the Board of Education has policy, and then the administration has procedural directive to implement that. So they do have to cite the statutory relationship that their administrative rule has to statute.
So I guess my question is, will we be monitoring what happens in order to decide what steps to take as a result? I can't tell if, you know, well, they're proposing these rules, and what if nobody monitors? But we got 26 days now for a change in the administration.
Mr. President, Mr. Garcia, yes, we are monitoring. They have a comment period that ends, and then it will be placed in the compilation of the administrative rules, and then it's up to us to implement those into policy. And so we have compiled these to pass that on to the new administration so that we can express our concern and to see what steps they will take to either clarify, improve, or remove the administrative code from
Okay, so these are not set once a rule is made?
Once the rule is made, sir, yes, the cabinet secretary can finalize it or can remove that rule. So, for example, you'll notice on the background check and licensure one, they've proposed it 3 or 4 times within the past year, right, and have received significant pushback, and so they're on their 4th version. So just because they propose it doesn't mean it's finalized, but the final determining factor is the cabinet level secretary.
Thank you.
But just to clarify, though, for you, Lorenzo, and that is that if there's a new secretary, the new secretary can do whatever they want to also. So they can repeal those, they can replace them, they can do whatever they want to with them, which is still an issue to some extent, right? Because there really isn't any real check and balance on that particular role that they play. In other words, there ought to be some way to say there's got to be some kind of a check and balance, you know, of this, so that people can't just make up. I mean, it's maybe related to some extent to a statute, but it may well be not something that the legislature has in fact endorsed at all. You know, it's be like us doing a policy, and our superintendent implements a procedural directive that does not follow what we think the policy meant, right? So that's the kind of relationship that somehow ought to have a check and balance. And so that's kind of the question mark, I think, in terms of how that's dealt with. And I don't know. I mean, I assume that the new Secretary of Education, whatever, will again report to the governor, right? And that's one of the issues I have, is because it's kind of like there really isn't any check and balance between that relationship. Doesn't really matter who's the governor or who's secretary. There ought to be some kind of a check and balance in that process. And so that may be something that we want to talk to the governor about to some extent. In fact, I actually asked that question at Taos. Did not get a really good answer, to tell you the truth, because that's something that the governor has to do, right? They have to basically give up power to some extent to say, I need a check and balance on that to make sure that the legislature and us and you know, whatever, and the judicial even, you know, are coordinated here, so that, you know, we all believe that whatever they do in the implementation of a policy or a statute is what we think it ought to be.
Thank you.
Right.
I just want to add, though, as a state agency, too, and the responsibility that I have, too, is also to promulgate rules. And so, for instance, it would be curious to know if these rules are being promulgated as a result of them having a finding of some sort that the federal government was stating that they had to do. So, for example, I'm in the process that I have to promulgate a new rule, and it's in this time frame right now. So, but I don't have serious pushback from anybody. So I'm curious about that, and I think there needs to be some way of working with the legislatures too around that whole thing, around that issue of like a moratorium when it's something that is not necessary. Like, because it seems that that needs to be coming as a directive to the state agencies to say you will cease and desist kind of thing, or you will halt for a period of time when there's a transition, because there isn't anything said to state agencies that we can or cannot do that, except maybe in the instance where there is like a federal requirement and we're in like serious violation of something, then yes, you would have to promulgate a rule, because like I'm right in the process of doing one right now. But I like the idea of that whole moratorium, but that again needs to come, I think, as a legislative mandate to state agencies, sort of giving us a directive around why and when. But I agree, it's difficult because the agency is responsible for then implementing that policy, as long as that policy is on the books. And so it does create an administrative burden, because then we have to go back and we have to create a policy. But we may potentially be creating a policy that potentially is just going to be rescinded, and that's a ton of work.
Let me ask if Elizabeth's still with us, and if she has any questions. Elizabeth?
I'm still with you, Dr.
Great. You're hanging in there. Did you have any questions or any thoughts or comments or anything else?
No, I always have a comment, but I'm in reference to the PED proposed rule changes. I'm just in awe, so I'll save those comments for later. But in reference to what Dr. Dahl reported on, I'd love to hear more offline. So I just want to propose that she and I get together in reference to the LESD presentations. I'd love to learn more on the school accountability and the teacher evaluations. And I also just wanted to tell Dr. Dahl that blue is her color.
Blue is her color.
Good. Very good. Okay. She's got that through the audio feed.
She's watching us online.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Board Member Miller again.
So, Dr. Escobedo, you were talking about maybe there being a moratorium on any of, I think you said 6 month. Where did that come from? Like, what are there states that do that if there is going to be a transition?
Mr. President and Ms. Mueller-Aragon, I have not done that research, but we can.
Okay, because that would be, I just think that's a difficult thing, because then you're talking about other, legislation that's coming in. Legislators are putting in statutes, and they may not be there next year. So I would just like to see what maybe other states do when it comes to that. I think that's just a difficult one, since the secretary, the governor, they're still there. So we're assuming that a lot of these will probably, I don't know what happens history-wise when a new administration comes in, or a lot of rules repealed then?
Mr. President and Ms. Mueller-Aragon, I'm sorry, I don't have that answer for you.
Okay, because that would be another thing. Well, let's see, are they repealed? If they aren't good, you would assume that the next administration would go, this is not good, and they would repeal them. So that's information I think is important for us to have. So if you do get a hold of it, that would be important to know. And then on the charter school application and appeal requirements, there was just the things that were just the strike-throughs were what was changed then, so it wasn't all of it? Or what? I was just kind of confused about that one.
Mr. President and Ms. Mueller-Aragon, what they are proposing is really putting into statute to administrative rule to codify the Public Education Commission's process of approving renewal applications based on the school grading system.
Okay, so it is different. Okay. And then the other one, when it comes to the grading of public schools, I think kind of goes to something that Member Montoya Cordova was talking about. Were they trying, I don't know if you can find this out, were they just trying to align the rule because of ESSA, and that they had to put that in there because of what was going on with ESSA? Their ESSA plan, and I'm just wondering if that's something maybe that they had to do just to try to align it.
Mr. President, Ms. Mueller-Aragon, in the The rationale that the Public Education Department publishes for changing the rule, they did say it was based on ESSA. We can tell you from our research and Mr. Melendrez's deep dive into this and being involved in this very extensively along with our associate superintendents and superintendent, that this is not in congruence with the current ESSA plan that was approved by the U.S. Department of Education. Okay. The U.S. Department of Education has given guidance to state public education chiefs, telling them that they can propose changes to their ESSA plans, but they must take 6 months of stakeholder input prior to submitting any changes to the federal government.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members? Comments? Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the update. Appreciate it. We'll go on for the consideration approval of the 2019 legislative agenda. That is a discussion action. Heather.
So this is discussion action items. So I tried to wrap up the salient points from our legislative work session to make sure we have documented the top items for sufficiency and local control, and also attached a sample type of communication that we could use to share these points, as well as the conversation around our legislative agenda. But no, this is just kind of a representative form of communication, and we could create some others in the next month or month and a half. So I guess you guys, all of you know the history of how we got here and the plans that we looked to, reviewed to look over this. So I stand open for any questions.
Board member comments? You look confused right there, Board Member Peterson.
Yeah, I think it's a good start. You know, we talked about wanting something that we could hand to people, something that was an easy talking piece, and this is certainly one first step. It may not be the last one. You know, the thing that's tricky about the legislative session is there's so much out of our control that happens. So having just those flexible guidelines, I think, is the only way to go about setting out our plan, because it has to adapt to whatever is up there. But I was looking, the fact that the partners are presenting next Wednesday afternoon, and we're definitely part of that. And, you know, it seems like we're off to a good start. Mm-hmm. Updates, ongoing meetingly updates once the session starts, I think will be the next step.
Board Member Armijo, I'll give you a shot.
I have actually no questions. Thanks.
Okay. Other comments, board members? I mentioned this to Heather just a little bit. You know, when you read through this and we take a look at the very first sentence, it says Albuquerque Public Schools believes that the mission to serve students in our community takes the cooperation of our school board, district leadership, the governor, the legislature, and the public education department. That I believe, but I believe it also takes more coordination with not just those, but with our teachers, with our communities, with our parents, and those people. And I don't know how we put that in there without making it, you know, voluminous. And of course, right now, with regard to how we have to coordinate, you know, with the legislature, we will be, of course, coordinating with the legislature and with the governor and with all those people. But we'll also be getting input. We'll be getting input from our community, and that community is extremely valuable to us. You know, we can go up there and say something. It's okay. But if a community goes up there and says something, it makes a big difference. In other words, they listen to it. And I'll guarantee if you get some kids to go up there, they really listen to it. They would not embarrass those kids under any circumstance, right? So the younger you can get them up there, probably the better it is. But the point being is that we probably need to somehow work that into our vision a little bit more so that we understand that those are a big input to us. We know that there's this top level that we got to deal with, but really we're being driven by our students, we're being driven by our parents, we're being driven by our communities, and that's what's really important. So we want to make sure that that's really clear to us somehow. And again, I don't know whether we really, I mean, it says it's in action. I don't know if we really need to take action particularly, because in reality, this is kind of more of a flyer that says, does this kind of agree with mostly what we're doing, but we may change it, we may add other materials. So I think what this is telling us is that these pieces over here, these little bullet pieces, are the main ones that we've said are our function. That's what we're really, so if we're approving something, I would say we're approving those bullet items for the most part as being kind of a higher priority, but again, we had a whole list of things that still could be an issue and still could come up to us. So
Yes, Dr. Piercy,
yeah.
I concur with that, where really that flyer is a sample of what we can use to communicate.
Yeah.
And you really are kind of, your action item is more on the bullet points to determine what our priorities are.
Right. So I don't know how you can, maybe build that into something, or maybe an additional, maybe down here when you fund the program resources for students, for communities, for, and of course expanding, just like what we talked about in the CTE and things, it's expanding our capacity here by working with our communities. I think that's really, really important. But so I'd leave it up to you to decide, how that might be worded. But I think, again, the main thing we're looking at are these main bullet items here. And that doesn't mean we wouldn't be supporting other things, because things will come up in bills all the time, or maybe things we don't support, So, so that was my thought. Other comments? Board Member Garcia?
Well, in looking at this a little closer, maybe just the beginning of the first paragraph where it says above-the-line funding is an important step towards sufficient funding. Maybe that's where you stop. I don't know. I think the rest is implied, but I don't know. What you have to decide what catches the eye, and perhaps maybe in consulting with the leadership team, you might think about it, because I think this could be reduced to a card that could be put in someone's pocket. So we're real clear.
We might be able to do that as well, though.
Yeah,
in other
as
words,
well.
There may be multiple versions of this, maybe some more verbose, like mine, and some a lot more succinct,
Sure.
like you were stating, And I think that's always good, because if you can hand a legislator a card that says these are our main bullet points, and by the way, do you need to know anything about this? See, Heather, but I think that's an easy way to communicate something. If you hand them a pile of paper, then they kind of, they don't get it quite as quickly. Yeah, right. So that's a good thought. Lorenzo. Good thought. Yeah.
It just maybe editorially you'd have to see what might work, and maybe the meeting that we're going to have with our Albuquerque legislators might be a place to ask them what works better for you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, great idea.
That's it.
Good.
Special ed funding is listed twice.
Oh.
Yeah, it is listed twice. I was going to bring that up.
That's true.
That may be because we have special ed that needs more funding, right? We listed it twice.
Could be.
That must be really important, right?
We have to decide whether we want capitalized education or lowercase education.
Yeah.
And the sentence, increased regulations more often led to obstacles in serving students and retaining employees rather than support or accountability. That sentence didn't make sense to me.
And there are things that we know are going to come up. For instance, I know there's going to be legislation introduced, for instance, around ethnic studies, and it may be that comes up as part of local control and graduation requirements. I mean, one of the barriers right now for some students is the way graduation requirements are framed. And so I mean, I think there are going to be lots of things that are near and dear to us that we discuss a lot that we don't necessarily want listed, but definitely probably implied in sufficient funding and the freedom to really address the needs of our community. And it may be more of an implication than spelled out because the list might be very long, but we know it's there.
I'll give you an example of that, Barbara, and that is, you know, I've been on this kind of trail to say we need an equity policy. Okay. There's a lot of traction nationally on this issue to some extent. And as an example, Maryland now has, at the State Board of Education level, a proposal to put out an equity thing, okay? Well, I don't mind that at all, but I'd sure like to get on the front row of that. I'd like to have our own first, you know, so that we could be a source of input to anything that might happen in that regard. That was like ethnic studies, too. I think, you know, when we are on board first, we're proactive on that, and therefore we can have an input to what any policy at the state level or statute or whatever you might want to call is there. And we've heard from a lot of our constituents tonight and last meeting about some needs that we have. And so I think for us to be able, and you know, even special ed, we're talking about special ed, we're talking about all of our students, right? We're talking about what do we really mean by this? And it's complicated, folks. It has all kinds of different combinatorial things here to deal with. And so for us to kind of get on board a little bit with that, I think is a useful thing. And that's kind of the idea. In other words, they may be starting to propose some things up there. Well, if we have things in play or on the say, ready to build, so to speak, then we can actually provide an input to that. So I think there are quite a few things. You know, CTE is a perfect thing. They're going to deal with some CTE things, right? So if we have a framework and we have some ways to work and some ways to build this model, then we have a big input into how that might look. So it's less work on our part, and instead of just reacting to whatever somebody else does and says, oh, okay, then we got to go do something, right? And it's kind of the same thing with all the things we talked about with our Native American folks, you know, is that it's not just Native American because, you know, we have also the African American, we have, you know, the Hispanic, we have all kinds of different ethnic things. We have all kinds of different disabilities and different mental illness. We got all kinds of things here that are combinatorial in terms of what we mean by equity and how we provide opportunity, equal opportunity or equitable opportunities. And so that, I think, is a big systemic issue that we need to kind of try to tackle and work on. And I don't have you know, like I'm going to have this presentation, and I was going to say there's the comments, but maybe I won't make any comments then, up at the New Mexico School Board Association on equity and what's the board's role. And so we have a kind of an example. We have a draft equity policy that we're going to spend 30 minutes of the hour working with whoever comes to say, what do you think about this? And what are better ways to do this? And so forth. And you got to understand there's a level here. Policy is one level, implementation is another level. So what's the board's role? Well, the board's role is policy. The board's role is that. What's not our role? That's an important part of the deal. And I wish we could have a nice discussion with our students and that here to let them understand there is a role for the board in what we're talking about, and there's not a role for the board in what they're talking about. And that's an important distinction. And it's important for our young people and our adults to understand that distinction if we can, you know, put that forth. So those are kind of neat issues, you know, that I think will come up as we deal with some of the legislative things. So anyway, yeah. Board Member Patterson.
With regard to ethnic studies, I know that there's a senator who is introducing this statewide. I really believe it has to come from the state level so that it is implemented at the local level. I don't trust that we can do that we will do the right thing if we don't have it at the state level. So I really believe that it should be included in here as well. That ethnic studies be included here and that start at the elementary school level.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, Ken. In fact, if I'm saying that we should have the impetus to say that it should be. But
It should be, yeah.
and if we have some things done already, then we actually can help that process, right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea. Yeah. No, I think that, but if you do it at a state level without talking to us, and then we have to implement something that we haven't actually been in discussion with, then that's harder on us. That's harder on us. So I think that's true for all districts. In other words, all districts will have a little different feel for what that's going to be. So yeah, good point. Good point.
I just have a question. So
Yes.
are we saying then that sufficient funding with APS would allow us to be better at that too? I mean, or is that what's keeping us also from being able to fully implement ethnic studies?
Well, I think it is. Although, again, whether we would implement it correctly or not is another question, you know. But I think, again, funding is certainly a part of that picture because, you know, we need to be able to create the curriculums. We need to be able to provide the studies, the different kinds of curriculum that would be there. We need to have the teachers and the mentors that would be teaching those kinds of things. I've been a big proponent of having an ethnic studies framework where you have kind of a general ethnic studies course that kind of touches on a lot of things and then branch it off into different kinds of studies that you might have. You could have a Native American, you could have an African American, you could have a Hispanic, you could have different kinds of studies, right? And not just by ethnic group, but there could be other kinds of things, you know? There are gender issues. There are all kinds of different issues here.
All the isms would go on.
All the, whatever they are, right? Yeah. And so it's kind of a matter of trying to say, how do we organize that so that students can get some things? And again, you can start this early because, again, you know, you start it when early, and when you start early with kids, kids get it. You know, it's adults that have learned these things in a long time that don't get it. So.
I was just asking the question in relationship to this document, though, with is that then part of instructional materials? Is it implied as part of that? I mean, how does ethnic studies relate then to our priorities?
It is.
It is. It is a priority.
It is a priority.
Part of self-sufficiency. So
yeah, it is.
Self-sufficiency.
So, I mean, do we need to add it to this list? I mean, for me, I hear us talking because we have had meetings where we talk a lot about ethnic studies. We've had lots of conversations about needing to expand it, move it forward. But where I'm trying to understand, is it a something or is it a value in the way that we approach our work, similar to like we're approaching equity? So I'm trying to figure out, like, how does it fit then with our priorities? And that we're communicating out to our constituents then.
It disappeared off this list. It was on the original list.
Was
it was.
I
Yes,
don't
it was.
remember.
I do, because I brought it up. It was when we had that discussion. It was on here.
So do we think as a board that we ought to have ethnic studies, or?
I think we should have ethnic studies, but I want to propose a little bit of a confounding
Yeah, because I'm struggling.
comment.
I see what you're saying.
My
Yeah.
suggestion would be that we lobby for New Mexico studies, which would include all of these things. And the reason is we have legislators who do not see the world the way we do, who see it often the opposite in terms of, you know, where their limitations are at this point. So my suggestion would be that we say New Mexico studies such as ethnic studies, and then we maybe list a combination of options. For me, this plays out at the legislative level in that students have to be allowed to take these studies for course credit. Otherwise, students who are trying to get to college, or dual credit classes, maybe another way of presenting this, that we want to be able to have options to offer credit, dual credit with CNM and UNM, that students can actually take. I know the the one issue that was brought up at one of the high schools was that students who needed to take these classes couldn't, because they were trying to just complete their core credits. So our challenge is, how do we frame this? And that's part of the dialogue we can ask for with PED, but the legislators need to understand that they have a role to play in this. I can't tell, I don't have a good read on the legislature, but my hunch is that this could easily be manipulated into a fight we don't want to have.
Board Member Garcia, Dr. Piercy, members of the board, I guess the clarifying question around the ethnic studies, are you requesting that this, or are you supporting it as a graduation requirement? Are you saying, because it's offered as an elective now within APS, and there's lots of different iterations depending on the school site.
I think, again, the concept is to make it being able to be taken as a core course. Now, there's a core history course.
In lieu of a graduation requirement.
Not in lieu of. It would be a part of a graduation. Graduation requirement says you have to have 2 history or whatever, right? This could be one of those.
The graduation requirements, Dr. Piercy, members of the board, in social studies, because I taught that for 12 years, are specific: world history, U.S. history, government, econ. So we could say in lieu of U.S. history.
But we don't have to have 4. We don't have to have 4 courses in history.
There's 3.5, I think, that are required.
How many are there?
There's New Mexico history is a semester course. New Mexico history is a semester course that's required. World history is a year-long 10th grade course. American history is in a year-long 11th grade course, and 12th grade is government first semester and economics first semester. Those are specific requirements for graduation.
We have to have all of those?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
3.5 years?
Correct.
So there are so many layers to this.
Well,
and part of it is funding. I mean, we need instructional materials, and our drive needs to be to make sure that the instructional materials that are purchased, for instance, if we're purchasing world history, then or U.S. history, that we're purchasing the instructional materials that have real history in it. And so part of it is our knowledge base and the knowledge base of the teachers who are teaching that have the ability to select instructional materials that have the content that we want, that really reflects what's the real history of New Mexico, what's the real history of the U.S., that doesn't edit out things that some people want to edit out. So some of that's just having the ability to purchase materials and putting it in the hands of teachers who have the knowledge base. There's a whole nother layer of ethnic studies that needs to be, a good kindergarten curriculum is in part ethnic studies, and it needs to start from kindergarten on. So how legislation gets framed, there are different layers of what has to happen. Partly it's professional development. Part of it is opening up pathways for real collaboration. And some of that is just funding. Some of that is monetary. Some of it is graduation. I think we want to phrase it in a way that opens the door rather than limit. And then as legislation gets proposed, that we know sort of the framework we're coming from, and then help be part of how that legislation gets developed. So it does seem like it needs to be spoken to. I was thinking maybe on the second page, in the green, where there are 3 paragraphs, maybe there needs to be another paragraph that talks about somehow the urgency and the need to make sure that who our students are, is we can reflect. I'm not saying this well, but whether it's dual language, whether it's ethnic studies, whether it's even CTE and some of those things, that maybe a paragraph that more powerfully and directly speaks to curriculum that addresses who we are as a community.
So maybe it's in that first paragraph where it says the districts and school boards to serve their communities and be responsive to the unique needs of local communities, including, that's where we probably can strengthen it around the, the cultural unique aspects of a community or what we're trying to serve in a particular school district. I mean, that would be a way, because as I hear you talk about what you're saying, to me then that whole part of this history or pieces that we've been hearing, it shows up in instructional materials. It shows up even in early childhood, teacher pathways, art and music. I mean, even in that, because there's a lot of cultural pieces that can be built into just the way that we do art and music in our schools. And I think we do. I think there are some ways that we already support that, but we need to broaden it, even in the social emotional supports. But you're right. I mean, maybe it is saying it just more specifically that is a mission for us in terms of making sure that we're looking at a way to embed that as a piece of it. And obviously, I mean, I'm also going to be the first to say, just by writing the words and saying this isn't going to be the answer to it either. I mean, we have a lot of work to do. So, I mean, but it could be, because I'm also certain that this particular issue that's going on is also going to be part of what's going to be coming up during the session for us. Mm-hmm. And so I think it really needs to pop here that, this is a step of where we need to go, but it also is it has to be part of our funding request, because we can't get there without some additional dollars too. I mean, we really can't.
So what is the suggestion from the board here, just so that Heather?
So Dr. Piercy, members of the board, I just wrote down some phrases to include something about culturally responsive courses, materials, culturally responsive curriculum and materials, including courses, professional development, and training. And I know that in our legislative work session, when we talked about instructional materials and teacher recruitment, those were conversations that aligned with culturally responsive. What I'm hearing you all discuss is that it's something that kind of overlaps both with insufficiency and local control. And if there were a bill about a graduation requirement, that's might run counter to a local control conversation. So we'll have to talk when that legislation comes available. But I think we can weave both into the narrative and with insufficiency, culturally responsive as an item point.
Well, what about Board Member Garcia's thought about, say, taking the last spatial education funding and replacing it with something like New Mexico Studies?
Yeah,
which is kind of, the idea being is we have multiple cultures here, and so the idea isn't to take it away from ethnic studies, which may be known more broadly, but in reality we're serious. So let's switch it around a little bit and say, we in New Mexico have all these cultures already. And so our ethnic studies would in fact cover all these things, but since we in New Mexico are kind of unique that way, we could call it New Mexico Studies. I think that's kind of your point, maybe.
What you want people to do is not react to what you're proposing. You want them to think about it.
Right.
And I think it's not a reactive term. I don't believe ethnic studies is a reactive term. But given sort of the flavor of politics and how people are being pitted against one another, we may want to anticipate that flavoring to have been sprinkled into some perspectives up there. And so what we want to be able to do is say, look, if you come from the northwest corner of the state and you want to talk about a course around the history of ranching and farming and agriculture, et cetera, that would be a very important cultural piece, or agriculture, or variations of that. I'm not a curriculum specialist, so I don't know how you frame this, but my thinking is the idea is to keep the conversation door open as opposed to people jumping right on the idea that this is just a bunch of, UNM college, blah, blah, blah stuff you're imposing on my kids, and I don't want them to take that. Well, no, we're not. We're saying we want education to be meaningful. We want them to actually have an opportunity to get the sense that, in the ethnic studies that I have appreciated, that their families are not erasable, that they come with a history, that they can go back and interview their uncles and their aunts and their grandmas and begin to get a sense of who they are, and in order to know where they're going. It's pretty profound if it's done right.
So that brings up interesting couple of things. One is, do we have a New Mexico history course that's required?
Dr. Piercy, members of the board, New Mexico history is a requirement for graduation that's generally taken in 9th grade, but also it's a 7th grade year-long course in mid-schools.
Yeah. I remember my Colorado history course, and I learned every single one of the peaks that were over 14,000. I knew it at one time. But so there's a question that's going to come up. So, well, we already have a New Mexico history course. No, let me finish. The other part of it is, if Linda Lopez puts up an ethnic studies thing, is that going to conflict with our concept of New Mexico studies? So the question would be, how do we make sure that we're kind of together on this, so to speak, and not necessarily at odds with it. Yeah, and I think we can do that. I'm just saying that those are kind of a couple of things that are.
Well, again, I think here's the conversation for the meeting with the legislative leaders that come, and say, here's some of the things we've thought about.
Yeah.
What do you think would work here?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
To get their guidance. So it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, good idea.
A collaborative. So with that collaborative effort, but when you talk about New Mexico history, doesn't that limit that? It doesn't include the isms in there that you want to include? When you just say that you're going to make New Mexico ethnic studies?
And that is another thing in terms of the broad.
But that was part of ethnic studies when we started those conversations back in May of 2015, and some of the folks are here. That was part of the conversation. That was part of ethnic studies. That was part of the conversation.
Yeah, it goes across all those equity issues, all those things across all these different.
Yes, so I just wanted to make sure. I just wanted clarification on that.
Yeah.
I
think it's a good discussion.
I would just like to know what the community really would like for us to. We're going to, Santa Fe. What do they want? This may be something we think, oh, this is all wonderful and this is good and this is what they want, but we don't know. Are we asking them? And I think that's important for us to know exactly what it is that they want. So.
Well, some of them have stated that tonight, rather forcefully, but I think that fits within, and what we've heard fits within, obviously, what we've talked about, but that doesn't mean it's everybody, right? That doesn't mean it's everybody. And so we've got to be careful about, that kind of thing too. But yeah, so where are we?
So if there aren't any other discussion items, we wanted to move to vote to accept these as priority bullet points, obviously knowing that we can't predict everything. We'll have weekly updates on legislation, but we want to be able to move forward and accept this as an agenda so that we have permission to move forward.
Okay. And you'll remove the second spatial education fund?
Yes,
or you can put two.
I will wordsmith
Put it
this.
squared up there.
Yeah, we're voting on the bullet priority items, and I will, Dr. Piercy, yes.
Okay.
And so,
go ahead.
Dr. Dahl, on this, is this whole thing going to go to the legislature like this little handout? Just because I will tell you on the red part here, where it's down at the green, the very, very last sentence, we feel prepared to know. We know how to direct funds to serve our students. Not we feel prepared to know how. I think we know how to direct funds, right? So if it is going, I would make sure and take out feel prepared to and just have it, we know how.
Yeah, I think some of the rewording here is the idea. Now, there's things we've mentioned on the second page here as well as kind of the first page. So I think the only thing we're really saying is the bullet items here are the main issues we're doing, but she's going to reword some of the things.
Yeah, Dr. Piercy, Board Member Mueller-Aragon. Yeah, I will rework some of those, and I'll take that suggestion also. This can be reworked, and as Board Member Garcia recommended, I will come up with different iterations of it too, like a small postcard or the point was to be brief and provide conversation points and contact information around what our priorities are. It's so hot in here.
Good.
Yep.
I know. I'm like,
I move that we, Dr. Piercy, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward as we've discussed this.
Okay, do I have a second on that
If you
then?
age, it won't bother you.
Second.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, there she is. Thank you. Okay, great. We've made it through that. Thank you, Heather. We have board member comments, but it's getting hot up here, isn't it?
It's very hot up here. It's warm.
So,
Time to go.
do I have any board member comments?
Great meeting.
I'll give up my 4 pages if you guys give up some of your pages. Anything that we really think is important to say, other than, I think we heard the constituents.
Yeah.
Okay? We heard them before, and we are sympathetic, we're empathetic, we are with them, okay? I think all the board members are, okay? I think the superintendent is. And we have been working on this from day one. It's important for people to know that from day one. But there's a process that we have to follow because that's part of the deal, right? And it takes a while to get through that process. So that's probably a discussion point to be had sometime with a real dialogue, saying, look, let's go over the process and tell you what we have to do because that's important for you to know in terms of how this works with regard to any employee for whatever happens, right? So that's important.
It's important that we heard that they really want a dialogue. That still was a monologue. And I think that what they're asking for is they really want to have a dialogue with us. So I think a forum would provide that.
And that would provide
so I
it.
think that
And
we
I think
need
we're working
to
on
make
that.
sure that that's what we.
And just for board members' knowledge, board member Superintendent Reedy just mentioned that President McGay has reached out to us or said, yeah, we'd like to meet. And so they're going to try to meet maybe next week sometime. So that's going to be a positive thing in terms of the dialogue. We need to make sure the dialogue with the real leaders of the Native Americans are part of that discussion so that they can help us understand how to address the students.
Other representatives will be meeting also.
Right.
Yep.
So, yeah.
I think we should really think about how much flexibility do we have with the Open Meeting Act. I think it is frustrating, and we hear this over and over again, with the frustration of people coming and speaking in public forum and then feeling like they get no response. And I understand the barrier, I understand that there's serious restrictions through Open Meetings Act. And at the same time, it seems like it's a question I'm going to bring up in one of the sessions at NMSBA to really try to get some clarity on, is this really and truly how we have to structure our meetings? Is there any way that we can address concerns without waiting to the end with board member comments? And I know there are issues, but the community doesn't know there are issues. And so what it appears is that we sit here stone-faced and not listening or not responding even when we are. And we're processing it and thinking about it and understand the passion and the concerns that people come with. It seems like we have some artificial things that set us up to.
Well, that's been a discussion
to have.
in many of the board meetings. I mean, ever since 9 years ago, that's been a discussion item. And
I
it's
know.
always come down to exactly the same thing. And that is that if you have a public forum, you need to set the boundaries and you need to make sure that it's equal for everybody who speaks. And unless you set the boundary at 10 hours and speak for 2 hours apiece, I guess you could do that.
Well,
But the point being is that this isn't the right forum for that. That's the main point. The main forum is if you want to have a forum where you have dialogue, that ought to be a different kind of meeting. We've had all kinds of community meetings. We have community meetings up the kazoo. We had all kinds of community meetings on the academic master plan. We had community meetings on the ESSA, right?
But I think there's an issue right now that the community wants to talk to us about.
Well, and that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to arrange.
But the other thing is the structure of our meetings, even with the limits we've gone through, and I think we came to some decision to change how public forum was structured. But the fact that we as board members can't respond to it until the end of the meeting, at which point everyone's gone home.
There's nothing that says that we could not have board member comments right after public forum. There's nothing that says that.
Okay, so then at some point
But
I
at
would
the
like
same
to.
instance, we as board members have to adhere to the same kind of rules then that the public forum does. Otherwise, it looks like we can talk as much as we want to, and some of us do talk as much as we want to. But the point being is, we have to have the same kind of a time limit, okay? And that may not sit well either, you see? Because if we say you get a minute, we get a minute,
It's not enough time.
it's not enough time to dialogue, is the point.
No, and it may not turn into a dialogue, but I think we should entertain some conversation about what that could look like and how we could do it.
I'm certainly open to that. But I'm giving you a preview of how I think that works, because if they're not satisfied with how much time they can spend, they won't be satisfied with how much time we can spend either, because we won't be able to have sufficient time to answer that either. So it's a conundrum in terms of time. And some people are happy to get a minute, that's okay. Some would like to spend about 30 minutes. So you got to have an equitable amount of time.
You know, I think, Dave, we all understand that. I just think we need to talk about, is there a way that we can respond more immediately? That's the conversation that I would like to have at some point.
I think it's the issue is really around when we're faced with a particular issue too.
Right.
Because public forum is also extremely helpful when we get some folks that want to come in and alert us to things that we might not hear otherwise. I really appreciated the I don't remember if she was a mother or teacher now because I was trying to manage all the names, but who came and spoke very eloquently about Barcelona and just gave us a heads up. That's a public forum announcement. It's an opportunity for us to just hear something. But I agree, when there are issues that are before us that are unique and it's something that's pressing, it does require us to have, I think, a different kind of forum and a different kind of process, which I understand we're working on. And that part we need to do. Because we've had issues also come before us on many times around parent engagement. And so we need to have that dialogue with those parents that are very interested in that. And we've had lots of issues coming before us around special ed. And again, needing to have just the conversation and dialogue around those things. So it can look like, yeah, we are a responsive board to those things. I mean, I really have been thinking about this for the whole month. And we've all been thinking about it for the whole month, but it really hasn't been an opportunity. Yes, and there hasn't been an opportunity for us really to do anything about that, and to really, aside from maybe talking to a few constituents here and there, which is helpful, but it doesn't resolve the issue of what really needs to be at hand. So
Let me share what I'm doing out in the community so that we can, I mean, this is what I'm doing. I've reached out to the counselor in the community in that area, in the Northwest area, and you're certainly included, or will be included, Board Member Aragon. I reached out to her because what's happening in the school also needs to be addressed outside the community. Out of those, in that schoolyard, there's something else going on outside that community. We're not saying everything is wrong in that community, but I think we need to reach out to that community. So I think what I'm proposing with the counselor and anybody else, and I noticed we had somebody here from the city, Mr. Solomon, who represents the Native community, is a community dialogue. It's a community dialogue with the folks in that community, and we start off in that community. We start off with the neighborhoods, looking at our neighborhoods, bringing in our students as well, our community of our schools, and having those conversations. It may be difficult conversations. It will be organized. We will look to see how we organize that, but that's what we need to do. It's reaching out to the community. Instead of sitting here and having these meetings here, it's the District Equity and Inclusion Committee should be out there. You know, we work in, sometimes when we do our meetings, they are done in silos, and I feel that way. So I think when we do our District Equity and Inclusion Committee meeting, the next one is January the 23rd. I think we need to have it out there. I'm sorry. We need to have the meeting out there. I really believe that. It's a community dialogue, and I think we need to listen to our community. We need to hear what's being said, what they want to say, and this, I think, would help heal our community as well.
Okay, I would like to say we've had a nice discussion. I might say, Candy, that we still have the same problem because it's a board meeting, but I think we do need to have a forum and a community meeting with our people out there.
Well,
that we need to have.
My own, though. This one would be my own with the counselor in the community. Is
well,
reaching out to the neighborhoods and bringing a community meeting, a dialogue, and maybe having the counselor there. And I've already reached out to that community as well.
I think that's fine. But I think, again, from a board perspective and from administration's perspective, we ought to have our own total forum that addresses these kind of issues, not just one board member, because that's only one position. We don't know exactly all the things that are said, and we need to make sure that we're consistent in what we hear and what we say. And so I think, again, we're working on that idea. And I think that's probably a general idea, you know, Superintendent. If we have a critical thing that comes up, and it does once in a while, we say right away, we say, okay, we're going to have a forum meeting, and it's going to be this time, and we're going to discuss that. Period.
Couldn't we just do them by quadrant also? Couldn't we do that by quadrant?
I don't know, Candy.
You know,
I don't know what the critical situation is going to be. I'm just saying, when we have a critical situation, we say, okay, this is a CBOA situation. We're going to have a community meeting out there with the community. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about what the process is. We're going to discuss that, and we're going to let you know what we're going to do. Okay? It may happen someplace else. Maybe it happens in La Cueva. Maybe it happens. Who knows where it happens, right?
There you go.
I don't know. But the point being is we may want to have some kind of a process in place that says when we run into a critical situation that we get a bunch of the community coming to us and say we've got an issue here. I'm not talking about one or two people. I'm talking about a major issue like this. We say we have a process. This is, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to follow that process, and we're going to come and talk to you. And that becomes now a dialogue, a forum, where we can talk, they can talk, and we'll do it as much as we can. We'll make sure that we have our process set up, what we plan to do, but we're going to listen to them and say, okay, we're going to modify our process, because basically what you said. And I think that's not a bad idea, because that is not that's outside of what we call our board meetings. You know, we've got to say that there's a certain sanctity in the board meetings and getting board business done. That is the idea of board meetings. And so I think to have this other mechanism is a good idea, because I think, but we got to have a way to do that without kind of sitting around and saying, well, what do we do? And is there a process here? And, you know, so maybe that's something for the administration to think about, you know, in terms of how do we do that? What kind of a process would be put in place so that when people say, you don't have any process, yes, we do. We have a process for this. We're going to come and talk to you. And it's going to be a dialogue, and we're going to let you talk. We're going to talk. We're going to see what's there. We're going to see what the path forward is, and then we're going to set out steps to make sure that happens, and here's the time frame that we're going to try to set
Okay,
it out.
but I still think that in the district equity and maybe in our committees and maybe this one in particular, that we have community input, that the community also participate in the drafting of the agenda as well. And then I wasn't finished because I just wanted to thank some people from our district equity and inclusion committee. Last time, you know, the reason the agenda was drafted and put together, you know, you have a lot of people, and I appreciate the people from the district, the folks at the district level that put this together. But one person in particular that brought the, the Food Coalition was Dr. Muir. She does an awful lot of work. You give her a call and she puts things together. And I want to thank you and Cynthia Grajeda for your work in putting that agenda item together. And thank you so much.
Great.
And then, Superintendent Reedy, I'm still waiting for your return call from last week. Yes, ma'am. That's okay. I'm done.
Okay, any other comments from anybody?
Just real quickly. I'll try.
Okay.
I will, no, I can't. I'm going to do something that's going to shock people, but since today's supposed to be a day to remember and think of President Bush, I have to say I was one of the yelling and chanting people many a time around issues that I disagreed with him on and that I thought was absolutely in the wrong direction for the country. And I was not sitting from the board end, I was standing and chanting in the activist end. But I have to say there's one thing that I truly appreciate, to have some honor in public service, and that somehow we've lost that sense of what public service is. And I really want to say, without sounding obnoxious or condescending or disrespectful, this group of young people who are in here tonight, we need them as teachers. We need them realizing the value of public service, that this is something, we're not leeches on the taxpayer, we're part of the community that the community can't live without. And we need other people to come on board and see it as something honorable and valuable and something that's worthy of us as human beings. And that part I absolutely respect and agree with, and I hope that we can convey it to the activist young people who are here tonight, that we need, that if we're going to fundamentally change who we are as an institution, it's got to be with them on the inside, not on the outside. And so part of our mission as a district needs to be to figure out how to open up those pathways for that to happen, to make them see that as part of their vision. But I hope that we can convey that message that there is honor in doing what we're doing right now. There's honor in being, whether you're a teacher or an EA or a custodian or an administrator or a board member, there's honor. And there's something that we need the rest of the community to come in and join us on.
Okay, with that, announcement of upcoming board meetings. Next Board of Education will be Wednesday, December 19th at 5 o'clock here, and the next Spatial Board of Education will be Monday, January 28th at DeLeo Martin. With that, we are adjourned. Thank you, guys.
I see your Franco. Oh, he is. Oh, my God. Yeah, I think my
So Barbara,
Your Franco is right there.